everyone, and welcome back once again to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host today. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have the full crew here once again. We have James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
Chao Min Wu,
How's it going?
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
and Josh Torres.
I'm alive.
Yeah, welcome back, Josh. Welcome back, Chao. And I came back from my overseas trip last week. We are nearing the end of summer. We are going into fall. We're going into the busy game season. American football has started up. I think I have like 5 or 6 games that I have installed that I'm in the middle of that I'm trying to play through. We have a lot to talk about. PAX West just wrapped up. Tokyo Game Show is just around the corner. So it's a busy time of year. There are rumors of a impending Nintendo Direct. We don't know anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up on middle of the week and then we have a shit ton to talk about next week. So it's exciting times. We have a lot going on. So we mentioned last week as he was out that Josh was able to basically be our boots on the ground for everything going on at PAX West over the weekend. And lots of different sorts of RPG and RPG adjacent news coming out of that for some big titles as well as some indie games. And Josh has been basically very busy throughout ever since, during the event and after, covering all sorts of things up on the site. His byline has showed up several times over at rpgsite.net. And I kind of, in our little notes to ourselves here, I put in a bunch of headlines, all the things that Josh has looked at. In no particular order, mainly the order that you published them, Josh. But basically, I just kind of want to start out just obviously for finally coming out of the strange times of the COVID era. First time in a while, I believe, for you to do something in person like this. Just so how was PAX West? I don't know if you had been before. How was it being able to do that?
It was my first PAX, and it was like a really, really good. I really enjoyed my time with it. First time going to downtown Seattle, and it's a really nice place, but it's everything is like walkable there, but there's a lot of like steep inclines in it at some parts of town, which was interesting. It's like kind of going up a roller coaster at some points, and I'm like, all right.
How was parking?
I Ubered, so
We had an Uber. I forget why, but I remember I was there for something, and from my experience, there's like a bunch of small, little, tiny lots kind of scattered around the downtown.
I saw them here and there.
There's like I didn't see like a big parking garage or anything like that. Just a bunch of little lots that you just pay for the day or whatever.
The structure of the convention center and like how they laid it out was it's just strange, but I guess somewhat intuitive by the time I was leaving everything. So how the convention center was split up is there's this central building called the Arch, and and it's kind of like a multi-floored structure, thinking like maybe 3 to 4 floors up, and then there's a bridge to like another building that I never entered. I forgot what it was called because I think it's like the annex or something, but I never entered that building. I always entered the Arch, and the 3rd floor of it was where the main expo was, where I guess it was originally altogether. But then there was another building called the Summit, where you had to basically go around the block across from the Arch building, and that's where you'd find the Summit building. It's like a barely, 5 to 7 minute walk there, so it's not a big deal. But it was there's like another half of the whole expo that's there, where they're just like other publishers, other games. This is where Larian was, Bandai Namco, and all sorts of other publishers were there. While the annex building, the Arch building, they had Xseed there, Sega Atlas, and so forth, and several indie developers there. So there's no really rhyme or reason of, hey, big publishers here, smaller publishers there. It was kind of evenly spread out on that end. And the Summit building was even stranger because the expo portion was in the basement of that building. Like you went down as soon as you entered, you went through like a checkpoint, and then you actually went down to go to the expo instead of going up on like the previous building. So it took a little bit to kind of wrap my head around the structure of it, but it was all pretty intuitive, and the signage was very good on where to go there. So for me, who's usually bad with directions, I somehow found my way around, which is probably good.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I had a couple comments like the last time I was in Seattle for PAX, I believe was 2016, which part of me is still like not that long ago. Oh wait, that's like 7 years ago. So it'll be 8 years if I go next year or whatever. But I remember a couple things. First of all, the inclines, you are right. I remember like if you head, I believe, west towards like the Pike's Place Market or whatever, it's like a relatively steep downhill incline. And then if I remember right, at least at the time, like it's very typical for these events, E3 included, to have like a main footing at the convention center. I guess more on E3 later. A main kind of footing at the convention center, and then they have like nearby hotels. People will like rent out lobbies or rooms or etc. But if I remember right, in Seattle, there are two Hiltons like within a few blocks of the convention center, and it wasn't always clear like which one like place people were at. I think the last time I was there, Final Fantasy 15 had a big showing, and all I knew is that that was at the Hilton. And I was like, which one? And I might be getting some of the details wrong, but I remember it wasn't clear which hotel they were in. So I'm glad that the signage was at least very clear this time for that. And also, I remember the last time I was there, I met up with someone local who had a car, and we tried driving around a bit, and it sucked. We thought just like take the metro or simply just walk. If it was like a 20-minute walk, it was better than driving. Just I remember that just being like, and I've lived and worked in places with terrible. Everyone says that the driving in their city is the worst, right? So I mean they're all equally bad, but I mean it was very walkable, inclines notwithstanding. But I'm jealous, and I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to go like within the next couple of years or so.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to see, us kind of doing more of these like in person, like sort of events, like, obviously more of us like Summer Games Fest, more of us at the PAX, like kind of more of these sort of events. It's really cool, and just like covering them with other people, obviously from the same outlet, makes for a better experience because there's so many things to go. As James is also familiar with that, doing these events solo is really fun. And it's cool to see, but you kind of get very little downtime for kind of just doing other stuff.
And you can't like delegate tasks or things like that.
Yeah, it really takes a lot out of you. So like definitely coming from the other person that's been doing a lot of that this year, I feel your pain.
Yeah. So but hopefully, but we'll get there. As time passes.
Well, I believe it was near the end of the podcast last week, Josh. We talked. James obviously is going to TGS, and turns out, and unless something's been updated since then, he's going to be flying solo there. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know, but I don't know how you're gonna do it, James. Best wishes, best luck. If you have any questions,
the good news.
I'm not going to tell you that I have answers, but maybe I can refer to you someone that has answers.
The good news is that a lot of the games that I would have played, you actually played them at PAX. So my load has been decreased significantly, which means that I'm looking at mostly like Capcom stuff, like obviously. Nothing from Square Enix because he got that covered. And they're not actually going to have Dragon Quest Monsters 3 playable unless there's something behind closed doors, but I don't know that yet. So,
I think the best person from our staff to ask about this is Kite, because Kite's been there for us before, so he would know.
And Kite actually, we had this earmarked to talk about later in the podcast, but I can at least introduce it now. A feature was up on the site where Kite basically compiled all of the announced developer live streams or platform holder live streams that are going on during TGS. Like Xbox recently announced they're going to trying to have a Japanese focus show. Good on them to try to keep a foot in that ecosystem.
I wonder if that Xbox stream is where we're going to see more of Metaphor. That'd be funny.
Yeah, because they've been trying to really push as like the announcement exclusivity, which, silly as it is, if we just get more information, that's fine. Yeah, because Atlas mentioned that they're going to have a show, but they're going to be talking about Persona 3 Reload and 5 Tactica. They didn't mention Metaphors. I don't know if you're right. That's going to show up at Xbox. Dragon's Dogma 2 is likely going to be mentioned. I forget a few of the others, but I'll pull that up when we get to that announcement. But yeah, and that'll be at the end of September, so not next week, but like 2.5 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now. So yeah, I guess we'll just kick this off then with Josh. Just you had the opportunity to talk to developers from all sorts of games, some big, some small,
Yeah,
and just kind of what you wanted to talk about first.
yeah. I'll just give a basic rundown of like what I did. So before the doors even opened, the day before, I met with Curve Games, a publisher, at the West in Seattle, which is about 5 to 7 minute walk away from the convention center, and I got to check out For the King 2 and Dungeons of Hinterberg there. Both really fun times there. Got a hands-on demo with both of them. It was cool chatting with the For the King 2 developers because it's a very RPG centric game, obviously, and the first one was kind of a cult phenomenon, but a lot of people liked playing with their friends and other people. It was a good multiplayer RPG. So I wrote down a lot of what I learned and what I saw there at my For the King 2 write up. It was funny because after they sort of showed me kind of the demonstration they wanted to do, just kind of giving a basic breakdown of what the game had in store, they gave me hands-on on like this defense mission. And after I survived a bad ambush on my very first encounter and was able to kind of mop that up and stabilize things, they were like, "Oh, you know how to play an RPG. You know that RPG is more than attacking. You can actually buff and reposition and debuff." Like, yeah,
No way.
It's crazy. I know, right? So they put me on what they call the advanced demo. I'm like, sure, all right. And it was a much later game portion of the game. It was like this gambling den dungeon with higher levels, more skills to work with. And I actually did pretty decently. They were pretty impressed of like how well I was doing through that. It wasn't too big of a challenge. And then it sucked, but like at the very end, I got up to the boss, and it was a pretty weird, dicey situation. But my time with them just ended right before I was about to deal with the boss. But I think I was very surprised at how much I really enjoyed playing that game in the brief amount of time that I did. I think it's way more tactical than it initially lets on, and it'd be a great just like the first game, the great time with friends, and getting that fourth player in there really shook things up. So
I
that
think
was a
For the
lot.
King was kind of like one of those like sneaky popular games. I remember a lot of my guild mates from my Guild Wars 2 guild, when the first game came out, they put so much time into that. And I go to the Steam page and it has like 25,000 very positive reviews. Like it's
Mhm.
one of those games that like cultivated an audience for a really kind of interesting, not quite like a tabletop RPG simulator, but having some of the same sort of vibe as that, and just having like a really good time just then going out with. I believe at the time for the first game it was a 3-person party. For the second game it's a 4-person party.
Mhm.
I don't quite remember the
Yeah.
details, but
Second, yeah. So the first game only
so
had 3 players, and then second game will have up to 4 players. Yeah.
mhm. So and then
Yeah.
Dungeons of Hinterberg
Mhm.
was recently announced in the summer showcase for Xbox, as at the Xbox 2023 showcase. And I remember at the time, obviously at the time we had was like an announcement trailer, kind of like a cell shaded Zelda like look to it. And whenever these little kind of interesting indie or double A projects, obviously it's got Microsoft backing, so I don't know if like you'd say indie, but we always kind of put out some polite like, yeah, we'll keep an eye on this. So it's really kind of cool when we can follow through and say like, yep, it had an appearance at PAX and we kept an eye on it. So tell us about Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Yeah, so I was talking with the Curve Games representative there, showing off the demo and talking about the developers, and it's kind of an interesting team because they were founded in 2020 and they're stationed at Vienna, Austria, and so the game takes place at the Austrian Alps, and the developers about consists of about 10 people at that studio, and I was very impressed because this is their first debut project for the game, and it's like it really makes it stands out visually already, and the premise of the game is really neat because it's about these 25 magical dungeons that kind of surround this town of Hinterberg, and you play as this adventurer who's on a vacation who wants to check out these magical dungeons. So like because of these magical dungeons popping up, like it sort of has like an international appeal to adventurers to go check them out and venture into them. So it's a third person action RPG, where it's separated by in-game days where you can spend a day either going to one of 4 overworlds and trying to find a dungeon there, or you can spend it in town and either do something on your own, like go to a cinema to raise your attack damage, or spend it with someone else and kind of almost raise their social link almost to get a gameplay benefit. Like at the demo that I played, I spent time with the ice cream lady, and my dodge stamina went up because I spent time with her. Because in this game, you can't like freely spam dodges like you would in sort of Bayonetta almost. You do have like a dodge stamina where it consuming when you dodge, it consumes a bar of your stamina, so it can only be like up to 2 or 3 times before you fully deplete that gauge. So you have your standard light and heavy attacks. You have abilities, and each of the 4 overworlds has 2 unique abilities that your character Luisa has. So in the Gamescom footage, she had this tornado that she could summon and ride on to go over these sort of the spiky paths and thorny vines. While in this demo, she had this sort of wrecking ball that she could summon to make it explode when you see like cracked surfaces. And also she can fling out this like ball and chain that could hit like further targets that might affect some part of the environment. So the game is very much exploring these environments. There's some environmental puzzles. The dungeon that I went to was like this cavern area, which is very minecart focused, where you have to reroute minecart tracks, ride them, avoid obstacles, and so forth. It controls really nicely. I do dig that it's not like too flashy or spammy. It's very efficient with the way that it uses visual effects. So things are very readable when you're in combat. It's not like visual effects all over the place to make it look flashy. It's very efficient, that sort of things. And it was cool because I was asking about what sort of the each of the enemies has like these masks on them, and like the boss enemy has like this distinct mask on them. So I was wondering like why the emphasis on masks, and that's because the creatures you fight are based off of Austrian mythology, where they every December in Austria they almost sort of like an event that kind of resembles Halloween, where people put on costumes and masks of like creatures from Austrian mythology and go to town and kind of kind of celebrate that holiday or that mythos there. So that's where they got it from. I'm like that's pretty cool. It's Austria is is not really a place that you see often in video games. So seeing that each of the overworlds in Dungeons of Hinterberg actually does represent like a biome that's in Austria. So that was neat to see, and
it's always cool to see games like use inspiration that's a little bit less well worn, like Greek gods, Roman gods, Norse gods, or mythology, well represented. But then, like I think back to Shin Megami Tensei 5, where they had demons inspired across the gamut from like both like West Virginia folklore to
they
Filipino.
yeah, exactly.
The split snake lady, and just like not quite the same thing, but it reminded me of that, where there's so many stories and cultures and another one that just came up was Colombia with Chris Tales, which Adam covered. That was like 2.5, 3 years ago at this point, but always cool to see as more people get into the development space from Vienna or Colombia or wherever, that they're going to put their culture and their stories in either directly inspired or loosely inspired into their projects and their stories.
Yeah. So for our first day of PAX, doors open about an hour early for media. So I got to explore the show floor a little bit before everyone else was let in, and I was like, okay, what's probably the booth that's probably gonna get swamped the most immediately? So I went to Sega Atlas, right there, and then I had a split decision here, and maybe I don't know if I chose wrong, but I was either gonna do either Persona 5 Tactica or Like a Dragon Gaiden for my first game. And I went with Like a Dragon Gaiden because I miss Kiryu. So I went to go check that demo out. It's a very brief demo. All of them have like 15-minute time limits hard coded into the demo. But you got to check out the new agent style with Kiryu, and it's stupid, funny, and dumb in the way that Yakuza is. So
I was gonna say that sounds just right. Absolutely appropriate.
Yeah, so you got to check out like his new tools with it, like that little wire tap where you hold down a button to activate them, and then you can like fling them around with the wire scale. You can summon drones. Um, one of his funniest moves in it is he has like jet propelled boots or shoes in it, so you can actually just like hold down like a button to kind of activate like these jet boots, and it'll just ram into people as you're moving around with it. Um, and also he can like throw a cigarette that's like a mine for people to just like go over and explode. So yeah,
And we saw in the what were the two things in like the initial footage? There was like the drone swarm and then like the Spider-Man web tether.
yeah.
So,
So you got and it's back to
no, agent stuff.
yeah, but it's back to the beat 'em up sort of style that people liked from the old pre Yakuza 7 games. So the movement kind of is a little bit faster. Kind of reminds me of Lost Judgment a little bit in terms of like how it flowed. But it was nice. It was great. And then you were just like in this kind of like this almost red district area with a lot of like mini games that you can do, dress cure you up. So I've had to go check out what they had. They had like the sort of gambling places, casino. I did like I just kind of peeked in on them to see what they had. Then I went to the hostess cafe, and they only had one option, but it's kind of weird. They don't use in-game models for the hostesses in this game. It's like almost like it's an FMV this time around. So you see them like the real life actress, like in an FMV style. You're interacting with them, and you can tell that's like playing a pre-recorded video based on the choices that you make in it. So it was kind of, I was like, all right, I guess, sure, why not? And then I've had to go. You can go to like a sort of like a place where you can just dress up Kiryu with whatever cosmetic items you have. Like you can kind of set like his casual costume is like his battle costume, I guess. So like if you're in the Coliseum, like wear something else if you so choose. It was kind of whatever. What you can choose a whole a whole bunch of options of what you want to. If you want to make Kiryu barefoot, you can do it. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. If you're really like asking for like, hey, I really want to play a Yakuza game where I play Kiryu barefoot, this is the game.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. So, and then that's
Are
when
they still kind of marketing this game as a like a Kaito Files like $40 like I don't want to say like budget game, but like the $40 quote unquote game. I think they kind of still are, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be longer than Kaito Files. It's still like a full-fledged Yakuza, but it's not gonna be as long as like Yakuza 7 or something. I think it's back to like what you expect in the length of like say Yakuza 2 or Yakuza 3, I imagine.
Yeah, 2, 3, 6, not 4 or 5.
Yeah, not 4 or 5.
Especially not 5. Please, not 5.
Oh god. So yeah, so it's gonna be a callback to people who enjoyed sort of those shorter Yakuza experiences. It's nice to have one of those once in a while. So I didn't actually get to the Coliseum. My time limit ran out before I actually got to like the Coliseum part. Like, oops, I didn't like because it doesn't show the timer. I didn't even know there's a timer. So after that, I checked out Persona 3 Reload, so the remake Persona 3. It was interesting because they had like two modes, like a new moon and full moon mode that I described in my write up for it. Where new moon is more for like newer players who aren't familiar with Persona, and the full moon time skips you to May 9th, which is the night of like the first full moon boss. You go against the Arcana Priestess on the monorail, sort of stuff. It looks really really nice, in the same way. It's obviously designed in the same vein as Persona 5. Runs really well, and obviously the new thing in battle is they sort of have the baton pass from Persona 5 in it with the shift feature. So hit an enemy weakness or hit them with a critical, anything that gives you like a one more, you can choose to still do that same character's turn, or you can pass it over to someone else right away, and for them to continue assaulting the enemy. And this kind of is interesting because in Persona 3, like a lot of people back then sort of had trouble with managing SP. So in this way, you have more. You can more carefully control the party's SP by just distributing, who's doing what in there. So it's and then there's like some minor changes with the way that very very small details of Persona 3 is in that portion of the game. Like I was like rewatching footage of the original, how they handled this. Like, for example, in the monorail, there's a part where Junpei goes ahead, so you fight some battles with the MC and Yukari. You meet up with Junpei, and then time limit begins, and so you have to like beat like the boss within that 8 minutes once you get up to it. Um, while in this one, that time limit doesn't start till you get to the Arcana Priestess boss. And it's like it starts at 30 minutes, which is weird. But then throughout the fight, as you're doing it, she'll like kind of fuck up the environment even more and like accelerate that timer countdown, which is not how it was in Persona 3 originally.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
That just seems like kind of fun and immersive in a way.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen in the original, and sure enough. So that was neat to see. I got the MC killed in it just to like reconfirm that like you still get a game over if your main character dies. So that was a fun thing I didn't mean to experiment with. I was like, okay, sure. And so that was my time. It's like I want to play it for sure. Like if there's like more of these changes here and there, I kind of want to see them and see how they do that then. Because I wasn't expecting that. So it was fun.
Since I still haven't played Persona 5, is the MC game over thing still true there, or is that removed?
It's still there. Yeah, so
Okay.
so the Persona 3 MC dies, that it automatic game over right there. So yeah.
No, I think he was asking, was that the case in Persona 5? I honestly can't
Yeah.
remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in Persona 5, I believe once your MC dies, it is a game over.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing in Persona 5.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it.
As long as I can control the characters. I know some people say like, nah, back in my day we couldn't control the party, but I like controlling them.
I mean, if people want to still do that, you can still do that in Persona 3 Reload. You just have to just like in Portable, you just adjust their AI behaviors.
Okay.
So you can still there's still that thing where like if you want to automate their turns, go for it. After that, I went to go check out this indie game called World of Kung Fu. It's by a Chinese developer, Chili Room. They actually traveled from China to go exhibit their game at PAX West. So I was speaking with them about their game. It's a turn-based grid style wuxia. Obviously, from the game's title, very martial arts inspired. I was a little bit flattered because the developer actually like read my Armored Core article of the site, before meeting with me. I was like, oh my god, thank you, Like, so actually we talked about Armored Core for a bit before like talking about their game, So it was funny and it was great. It's definitely like they work on the English localization. I believe it's like an early access in some form on Steam, like in Chinese. So it's a very open-ended style, non-linear sort of Chinese turn-based RPG, where after a very brief intro, you can study under like one of four masters across China to achieve a certain kung fu style. And there seems to be a lot of like recruitable characters as part of the game itself as you're going down the narrative. It was funny because one of the earliest characters that you can recruit is a dog. You have this dog by like the opening like shrine that you go down. It's like, hey, what's a lamb chop? It's like, so you go to like the nearby town, buy a lamb chop and then feed it. And it's like you wanted to join your party. It's like, yeah, sure, why not? And then I asked the developer, I was like, if you're really persistent, can you make this dog like a master of like a kung fu style? It's like, yeah, if you're really persistent, you can make it a master and like we can become a kung fu master and make it train in like all sorts of different styles. Like that's great. Like there's like a wine a wine art style where like I guess it's like kind of drunken fighting almost. So if you really want to, you can make this dog become a kung fu master, like a drunken kung fu master. Okay.
What was the name of this game again?
World of Kung Fu. I believe it's on Steam.
Okay.
Like World of Kung Fu Dragon and Eagle. So
sounds like a Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah. So that was fun checking that out. Then I went to, I don't know how to pronounce this publisher. It's like Ysbrid, Ysbryd.
Ysbrid.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Ysbrid.
Oh. Yeah. So I checked them out after I had lunch. I checked out Demonschool and World of Horror. World of Horror was on Switch, and then Demonschool, I believe, I think it was on PC, but I had a controller for it. I did a write up for Demonschool. That's a really cool game that's shaping up. At first, I thought it was gonna be. I didn't actually know how the battle system worked because I didn't really do much research on the game. I thought it would be a standard like turn-based battle system or strategy RPG because it had that Persona 2 style, and that's kind of what my brain
that's kind of been
associated
their
with.
big marketing hook is that it's classic Persona inspired
Yeah, but it's not even.
supposedly.
Yeah, but it's not even like. When I was speaking with the game's director on it, it wasn't even something that like they considered that it resembled when they only knew that it resembled classic Persona based on fan feedback when they revealed it. It was something that was more coincidence on their end with developing because they were trying to figure out how to retain the character model's proportions, but in an isometric style. And what they came up with was look very similar to what Persona did. So he guesses that I guess the development team back then for Persona, and what they went through came up with a similar sort of like design process.
They arrived at the same
Yeah,
place basically
yeah,
independently.
exactly. Um, but it's very much a little bit like Into the Breach of planning out your turns before you execute them. So you kind of tinker around with your moves, and the movement limitations is strange but cool in this game because your characters can only move in a straight line multiple spaces. So either a straight line in front of them multiple spaces or diagonally directly multiple spaces. And you can like change their trajectory by sidestepping once left or right in them. And when you when you land on a tile that's adjacent to an enemy, it'll automatically attack them. You don't have to there's no menu that pops up ever that says, hey, menu pops up, choose this command. It like does it all on the fly during this planning phase. So and then there are some characters that have different effects if you run into enemies. Like this character named Namako. She doesn't deal damage to enemies if you land her in an adjacent space. Instead, she can go through enemies when you interact with them in her trajectory path, and it'll swap her adjacent tile with the enemy, and as you swap that, they'll get stunned in the process, and a debuff as well. So, she's more of a utility character that repositions enemies and also inflicts debuffs, ailments also. And if you swap that enemy with her tile and they're like adjacent allies, it'll do like a combo attack on them, so you can kind of chain reaction sort of stuff. And your offense characters can like push enemies into other enemies or do damage to all of them and sort of stuff. And then your healer can obviously heal allies and can provide an attack up buff if they heal an ally that's already full on health. So it's a lot of like this planning phase, and it's pretty comprehensive because of the way that you manage um, your characters. Because it's not like one move per character; it's all dictated based on this pool of 8 action points that you have, and you can have one character act multiple times. It'll just take more and more AP the more you use them. So if I have Namako act once, it'll cost 1 AP. If I want her to act again, it'll cost 2 AP. Then again, it'll cost 3 AP. But that's individually, that's only per character. So if I have her act like 2 times, the cost of the other characters remain at 1 AP until I start moving them again and again. So it's like Into the Breach. It's all about maximizing your action points and your kind of player economy on that end. And that was really cool. There was a really cool boss battle at the end of it. That was very a lot of things going on. And I talk more about the game and in my write up for it and other sort of non combat activities that you do. And the game, they mentioned that the game will have up to 15 playable characters. So I only saw 4, obviously, in my time with it. And they all have like their own separate like relation sort of building with the characters, so you can spend time with them, upgrade their skills, learn more
Totally
about
invented by Persona.
them. So it seems really cool. I really dug how the battle system worked in that.
And it also just has like a really cool, just like visual
Yeah.
aesthetic.
hmm They're talking about like
lots of like reds, maroons, and purples.
Yeah, they're talking about how
really
it's very inspired by Italian horror on that end, so it has a very distinct look in its lighting. So that's definitely a game that I want to check out when it fully releases. That seems like a lot of fun. The other game that I checked out from Ysbrid was World of Horror running on Switch. This was this game's been in early access for a long time. It's coming out in 1.0, I think, this October. Um, the Switch interface sort of surprised me because you're still controlling the game with a mouse cursor in it. I thought it was gonna be more like a direct controller input, but I even asked about it's like is this gonna be like mouse cursor? I thought it was maybe a debug build or early, but it's like no, we're still gonna have the mouse cursor in it. So you're like controlling the game through a mouse cursor with a Joy-Con, and like it's not bad. It's just something that just caught me off guard. So I like it for horror fans, you know what to expect from this game. But they added a lot of it as like different color filters instead of just a monochrome. You can have it like in a sepia tone, have it really like a light blue. It kind of brings out more details of the artwork through these different filters, which just kind of provides an interesting sort of like mood and tonal shift when you flip them on. It's I didn't know how there's like a almost like a pick up and play mode in it that like we just went through like this sort of like mini case in the game where I had to go find items in the environment to go perform this ritual before confronting the boss and so forth. I just didn't I never played this game before, so I didn't know there's like a mode where you can like pick up and play and just like kind of do something. And then a lot of the game's allure is that it's like a Junji Ito inspired artwork, so there's like an index in the game that keeps track of like how like what artwork you've unlocked, and for people who want to or completionists and want to see all the artwork, there's a way to kind of chase those sort of like different endings and triggering different events that might have new artwork that you haven't seen. So that was neat. Maybe I'll get to a write up to it, maybe not. Who knows? Just depends on time and all sorts of
has that
stuff.
one been on like some of those Steam festivals?
It might have been. Sure, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the art and I know I've like seen this and like covered it before. So yeah, one of those games that's people have had different opportunities to kind of look at and poke at over the few different events over the last year or so. But still in early access on Steam.
Yeah.
Very positive reception there.
Yeah. So after that, I went to go check out this another indie game, pretty early in development called Mirthwood. This is but I think this is primarily developed by two people, and it's kind of very early right now. That you don't even see. I don't think they've shown gameplay off of yet. I did get hands on, saw gameplay, and it's like it's sort of a non-linear action RPG but it's like the character has a pretty basic like almost marionette style movement, and it's very open ended. You kind of get shipwrecked, and the very start you're on this beach, you're gathering equipment and armor and sort of stuff, and the fights are sort of basic but more it's probably more challenging than it needs to be right now. They even I think mentioned that to me because the enemy AI is very good at like getting out of your range and like counterattacking, and they have like this block that makes you stunned every time you attack them, which is kind of annoying. But the thing that stuck out to me in this game is the way that you build your character. It's a sort of that game that the more you do something, the better you get at it. So you get more better stats based on like how much you do something in it. So I was getting good at like gathering stuff, so I got um sort of more stats based on like my gathering level and go up. And the way you interact with NPCs in this game is very open ended because it kind of gives you almost like a lot of like different ways you can respond to them. You don't respond to them through words, but like through like almost reactions and emotions. So if you want to joke with a person, how do you want to joke with them? How do you want to respond to like what they said? Are you gonna get happy, excited, sad, disappointed? And I'm not exactly sure how that feeds into like the overall game itself. I think it's still very like in the very conceptual stages, like how they wanna flesh out the system. And like you can like have an NPC card display and it'll like display like their whole range of like what they think about you and their temperament and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not exactly sure how this will feed into the overall game itself and how it reacts to like what you're doing in the game and the overall scope of it.
a lot of those like longer reaching RPG mechanics and progressions are really hard to suss out in like a 5 to 10 to 15-minute demo.
Yeah. So I checked that out. And then I went to a VIP lounge at the Carly Room to go check out Monster Hunter Now. They had a free bar, free food, and I gotta admit, James was right. This game kind of is way better than you'd think when you get hands on with it. I got to play a good chunk of it. I played Sword and Shield, Long Sword, Great Sword, Bowgun, Hammer. Um, Against nearby monsters. I went to go do Raytheon, Diablos. There are some other monsters in there as well that I can't remember off the bat. But it ran really well in the phones that they had on it. It was pretty rock solid 60 FPS when you're alone. It does kind of dip as more and more players get more involved in it, but it runs well for the most part. Yeah, obviously had like all the all the armor, all the weapons there kind of already unlocked for you. But in the full game, you're gonna have to grind monsters, get mats to craft new armor, craft new weapons. Monster Hunter things. Um, and it was just kind of it was nice being able to like kind of just have the focus solely on like the monsters, nothing else. Like kind of really um interrupting you in the middle of fights is kind of just a very intimate sort of fight. And the mobile controls were more responsive and had like a really good like visual feedback on the animations that you were doing. Like everything felt very impactful in it, and it felt you know nice, like bopping monsters on the head with the hammer and them getting like having the feedback of a real monster, of like getting them stunned, getting them like posture broken, and all sorts of stuff. So that was really cool, and got to speak with some of like the Niantic developers, about the game and what they plan to do on release and all that sort of stuff. Like it's nothing like new was really mentioned, but kind of just seeing more of their mindset and approach to developing the game, because they're Monster Hunter fans as well on it. I think I don't know if I forgot if there's a sort of stamina system, but I think but definitely one of the systems that like people will have to manage is their health, because like that their health is persistent. So if you took like 8 damage from a fight, that'll to the next fight unless you use a potion. But if you want to take a break, that your health will recover over time as well. Because I don't know how much are going to be distributing like health potions. I like they mentioned something that they would, but I don't know how often. And also, I imagine there's going to be like monetization plans, maybe on that end too.
Okay, so the way that the health potions work is that you get a daily supply of first aid meds. You get, I think, up to 10 per day. So if you want to get any more than that each day, you either have to get them as like a level up, like hunter rank up rewards, or you can buy them.
Okay.
But if you're just playing it casually, like 10 is more than enough for like each day.
Yeah. So just take like don't try to speed run it, I guess. All in one single day.
Well, it's kind of similar. Like that's kind of in line with like the I don't know what you call it, the quest chest items, or you go out on a dispatch and you get 4 first aid kits in addition to whatever you have stocked on your bag.
It's enough where it seems reasonable, and like it makes sense that they'd be like, well, if you want any more, you're gonna have to pay. It doesn't seem like something that is like stingy, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I get it. Definitely looks like would have to see how full release handles it and see what what the prices are, because a lot of this is like it's hard to tell pre-release, and there are definitely some like hunts in that, like they're like 6-star hunts that I definitely did solo, but doing it with others obviously raises the monster stats, so you can actually like kind of get, if you're not properly equipped, you can get one shot in them. But it was fun doing them solo. It was great.
Yeah.
So and people going, whoa, you know how to play the game? I'm like, yeah, I know how to play a video game.
Yeah. What I can actually say is the game is in like a soft launch, and I believe like Canada now.
Mm-hmm.
But yesterday I did actually get code for the full release from Niantic, and I'm allowed to talk about it. So yeah, there's some changes from when I played the closed beta that I'm not so sure about, and hopefully they kind of revert them. When you played it, you got to check out the lock-on feature, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the closed beta, that was just like a basic feature of the game. Now it's an armor skill you have to unlock.
Oh, weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was universal.
Yeah, so I'm curious about that. Hopefully, like a lot of armor pieces have it, so it's really easy to get. But
that's kind of a weird change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to go check out Monster Hunter now. That was cool. Next day, I met up with Owlcat Games to check out Warhammer 40K Road Trader. It's their next CRPG in the Warhammer, set in the Warhammer universe. It was a pretty lengthy, chat with the devs as they were doing the developer walkthrough of like they mentioned it was like it was a late game save that's 80 hours in. So that's what I saw. I'm like,
Wow.
all right, cool. So it's nice to know that's still going to be pretty fucking lengthy, which is, that's fine. I don't mind.
It's par for the course versus the other two games. Yeah.
Yeah, but they showed off like a new character in it that had like dual blades and can dish out DPS really fast. They showed off this encounter with like phasing in enemies that you had to sort of cut off, and this elite enemy at the center. So you had to make sure they didn't like reconvene because it'd also be um more of a handle to deal with. Talking about their relationship with Games Workshop, and there's actually going to be romance in the game, but it's going to be limited romance because obviously you can't romance a sister of battle, an or a brother of battle, sort of like, because that's not canon. That would break the canon too much of the Warhammer universe if you could romance them. So there are certain people you can romance, but not all of them. So they had like I spoke with the developer about like how flexible was Games Workshop in letting you being able to like design some aspects of the game. So I definitely want to write up something on it. That's just something I didn't get around to yet. But that was really really cool to see. They showed me a little bit of character creation, and it's kind of a game will obviously have multiple endings. You can choose like an origin story. You can also choose that like it's still in development, so they didn't show me like specific options, but there are definitely options of like doing like your origin background for your character. Like you can choose like your greatest triumph and like your darkest hour, and that'll somehow feed into the narrative at certain points as well. So that was a really really fun game to check out, and seeing getting more of like the behind the scenes design process of like what they learned from the Pathfinder games for it. So that was a lot of fun. That I'll definitely try to get around to it at some point for the site.
The only thing that I'm worried about that is, I think the Pathfinder just mythos is more interesting than Warhammer for me. Like, I almost wish it was just a third Pathfinder game, but whatever. But also the fact that they're going strictly turn-based, which like I just have been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, which is strictly turn-based and having a blast.
Yeah.
But it's basically, I'm having a lot of faith here where the turn-based mods that were modded and then officially implemented into the Pathfinder games make those games very, very, very slow. But you could say like, well, they weren't originally designed with that in mind. Where with Rogue Trader, they made the decision very early on that it was going to be a turn-based game. So I'm hoping that means that just the number of enemies is not quite as many, because when it's real time with pause and you can kind of set up which skills are your most powerful, you can kind of do like enemy swarms, but then you just know how to deal with them quickly. Where turn based, it just makes everything kind of bogged down. So I'm hopeful, and it'll be kind of interesting to like, all right, I like the two other Pathfinder games. I don't know anything at all about Warhammer. Here we go.
Yeah,
I'll get CD in a side chat and be like, what is this? What is
that's
this?
definitely me with any Warhammer game. Like, I don't know, Warhammer looks cool, and like I play some Warhammer games that have fun with them, like Space Marine and like Vermintide. Like I don't know shit about.
They release so often that Adam, do you keep them straight when you cover these?
No.
But I know that Vermintide 2 was the one that got a pretty good following. It's kind of like this just like this 4-player pick up and play game.
Mhm.
But I don't know
And
anything about it beyond that.
And I asked about like the making this a turn-based centric game, and that's something that kind of they conceived at the very like beginning stages of development. That was like this is always planned to be a turn-based game. It was never planned to be a real time with action or real time with pause game because of the amount of abilities and skills that each character has. Like doing real time with pause would just be overwhelming, and this for that, so that's why they made it turn-based. And the actual like combat encounter itself didn't drag on for too long. It had like enemies phase in together, so there was a lot of like sort of like AOE style approaches, like handling like multiple enemies together and having working with your character synergies together to take them down, fairly quickly. Not like a breeze in the park or a walk in the park, but it's worth considering that at least for the demo that I saw, like it didn't seem to drag out for too long. But there was definitely a lot of careful planning that you had to do to make sure it wasn't going to be like a really bad, very bad situation. Like there was like the elite that they were going through, like got like a bad crit on like the new dual wielding character, like that almost died, but made it through. So yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. And obviously, it's going to be another lengthy game that people's fans of these developer, they know what to expect.
And will be a pretty popular game for Neo Seeker guides.
Yes, Chao.
Chao's coming over to do Warhammer. Is that what I hear? Or
I know
Chao, he's gonna guide it.
I mean, the Chao would always like this. This is something that doesn't surprise me, but Chao, who does a lot of work over with some Neo Seeker guides, like the two Pathfinder games are always high up there just because they're so intricate with their like progression and classes and quests. And I won't be surprised if Warhammer also ends up, Rogue Trader also ends up being a heavy hitter for that site.
Mm-hmm. So then I went to go check out a game that was actually announced at Tokyo Game Show last year. This was Enotria: The Last Song. So this is like kind of an Italian rogue or Souls-like game that's still very early in development. It was like they were showing off like an Unreal Engine 5 hands-on demo of it, and it plays like a Souls-like. Your R1 attack, R2 heavy attack. The main gimmick in this game, besides being based in Italy, is there's a lot of emphasis on switching masks that have gameplay benefits. They change up like your sort of specialties almost. So they're like an Italian Venetian inspired sort of masks that I kind of remember. I can't remember what the exact effects are, but like in the middle of like battle, you can kind of switch them out with the down D-pad. And like your character will do like a 3-second animation lock with switching masks. And you had your very limited healing items. You had like stance changes during your sort of combat, your combos, sort of stuff. So it like I got the developers a little bit, seeing where they're coming from in the game. It was in the premise of the game. I was getting to the premise of the game. One of the developers like, hey, yeah, do you watch anime? I'm like, yeah. It's like
A little.
So yeah, just a tiny bit. I don't know anything. So he compared. He sort of compared like the lore and like the premise of the game to like the ending of Naruto. I don't know the ending of Naruto, but I pretended that I did. I was like, yeah, I know the ending. Who doesn't know the ending of Naruto? So
I don't know either. I thought it had something to do with like moon people. It's really weird.
Yeah,
Hokage, I assume.
Look, man, I don't.
Sorry, all you Naruto fans listening. I don't know.
So people who know the ending of Naruto, the premise of Enotria: The Last Song is sort of similar to it. That's what I gathered. It's so early in development, like anything can change. Like it looks really pretty on Unreal Engine 5. The lighting is really nice, very vivid. The game performance itself, obviously not really that optimized. It's like 30 FPS cap right now, but obviously it's optimization is something that's like kind of in the back half of development most of the time. So that's not really a big focus right now. Right now, it's kind of fleshing out game content itself and what sort of finalizing features and so forth. So it was a neat sort of shake up to like to the Souls-like genre of like having this emphasis on mass changing for new gameplay benefits and passives and so forth. After that, I briefly checked out Rabbit and Steel. I had a lengthy chat with the developer. Coincidentally, I didn't have an appointment for it, but we just kind of sort of got into talking about it, and I put the whole into an article, and I hope people like that because it is a lot of for people who want to know what developing a game is like, especially solo development is like. There's a lot of great insights about that in that chat with the developer, especially because there's a game that is team-based focus. It is basically not an RPG, but it is a roguelike for up to 4 players. That at each fight in the game is plays out like an MMORPG raid. So there's a lot of stacking mechanics. There's some soak mechanics. There's all sorts of mechanics that you only really see in an MMORPG raid. And for people who've never done it, you know, it might be a nice introduction to it because usually MMORPG raids demand you to have like some hours into an MMO before you even see the like one of the initial ones. And even then, like it's only very basic mechanics. You don't really get into like later MMO raid mechanics until much further into an MMO usually. Just spending a lot of hours into it. So we spoke a lot about like he was very into FF14 at the time when conceptualizing this game, but wanted to bring that experience over to an audience that like maybe didn't want to spend so much time into an MMO to get that experience. And so thinking about like the ways you streamline the leveling up in this game, hiring up your character, design challenges, and all sorts of stuff. It was a very, very fruitful, insightful conversation that I was, pretty proud of like being able to kind of to keep up with it because it's been a while since I've really played an MMO and being able to sort of get like think about things from a development angle, how you would design that sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great. It was awesome. Yeah.
I can kind of see some of that. I was watching their little announcement trailer as you were discussing, like kind of some of the philosophies there. I'm like, yeah, I can see it. It's kind of fun. Where if you just want to pick up, try a new experience, and see how they've implemented these sorts of things, where normally these are 100 hours in or more into a much more long running game, just to have it more kind of bite sized and piecemeal like that.
Yeah. So that was fantastic. I also I also did like another like sort of like on the spot mini interview with the developer of a game that has been in early access for like forever now, like Long Gone Days. It's like a narrative focused RPG that's finally getting a full release.
We brought this up on the last
over.
week podcast because, like, I guess back in like 2018 or so, Zach reviewed the early access,
Yeah.
and like we had a comment like 5 years ago where Zach put up the review. I think he even scored it, and then the comment was like, "You should revisit this when it's out of early access." Like, we'll do. It's like, oh, thank you, Zach, for signing us up for that.
Well,
So
so
we'll see.
yeah, but no, but it was great, like being able to like speak to the developer about the the challenges of like the early access process, why it's taken so long, and what changes people can expect from like the early access period to the full game. I'll probably that up because it was a pretty fruitful conversation again with the developer. That once again, I like sharing and like learning and sharing like the human side of like game development and trying to get a better like getting people to more people to understand like well obviously one game development is hard but two that things change over time and things you know may not be in the full release depending on development schedules like even with the Rabbit and Steel developer the like it's a very human moment and human response when thinking about like what is going to be the final full release when it initially launches. Will I have the full ending of the story out, or will I release that as free DLC later on because of meeting development deadlines, development schedules? What does the timetable look like right now? So having like these face-to-face conversations and seeing those human moments, like not even just like hearing what they say, but also just kind of like the body language and what is communicated non-verbally at that moment is pretty enlightening and pretty, it's always cool to see, people think like communicating to people that game development is more than just like shipping a game out of nowhere magically.
Yeah.
It is a much more complex process, and being able to get those sort of like conversations and showing them to people, getting people like get to understand that. I love doing that, but but that's just me. So I got to speak to Longandi's developer. I also got to briefly check out this really cool adventure game, hand drawn. It seems like all hand drawn, called Eden Schemata, that Playism is publishing. This is a really pretty game. It is sort of like the closest comparison I'll give it is like sort of like to a Zero Escape game from the brief time I played it. So the premise is, at the very beginning, you're this character that stumbles upon this android that's sort of broken, and then you come across her. Her name is Eve, I believe, and so she has like broken, like torn off limbs all over the place, but she reattaches them um once he powers up and meets you. And while you're trying to figure out what's happening, there's this other like robot out of nowhere, kind of like a small robot called Cherry. And Cherry accuses Eve of murdering someone. They have camera footage that of Eve looking back at the camera with red eyes and a dead person in front of her. It's like, you killed this person. It's like, and so the very first task you're given is trying to prove Eve's innocence. And then so you have like this adventure sort of interface where you can shuffle between like different screens, interacting with the environment, trying to find out what happened here. The thing is, you only have a limited time frame. Like it says, you're given 5 minutes to do it, but it's represented through actions. You only have like 5 actions you can do. Commit to 5 actions you can do in their environment before time is up. If you do it unsuccessfully, and it kind of suspects you to do it unsuccessfully at first, Eve is pretty much scrapped, and you have to do it again. But the tutorial teaches you from that first failure that you can actually use keywords and get a list of keywords and hover them through like different like dialogue bubbles in the environment, and that might lead to another thing. So a keyword that I obtained, I hovered it over something, and it opened a safe that like gave me a key of some sorts and a password. And the really striking thing about this, because a lot of this kind of you've seen in other adventure games, but the really striking thing about this is visually it looks like a sketch in motion for these characters, like the way they move, they animate through this screen when you're interacting with them. It's like almost like a handmade anime like sketch in motion, and it was cool to see that like there are parts of this that are incomplete. I think they're incomplete because, like, for example, there's like on one of the screens, like Eve has this animation where she um looks behind her and walks towards to like to an object behind her, but there's like in between frames that I believe aren't like colored yet. So like for a frame, like her whole entire model is not colored. Like for a frame, it's like white, and then back to a colored motion. It's like, so it really shows that like each and every frame seems like it's like even every frame in animation is like hand sketched and hand like almost hand colored also, and all sorts of stuff. So it's like that's one hell of an undertaking, dude. That's not easy. So on a technical level, so
Yeah,
like,
I don't have the technical vocabulary to speak to it because animating on the ones or on twos, to emulate different levels of like fluidity in terms of what the techniques are and digital animation versus hand-drawn animation versus digital coloring, things like that. But again, as you've been talking, I just pulled up just the default trailer that plays on Steam. This is Eden Schematica. If you just search for that, you should be able to find it, even though the title is a bit stylized, kind of like Void Terrarium. But yeah, just the animation here, it's not quite like anything else I've ever seen in terms of like, I can't think of a very direct comparison. Like, oh, this looks like this game. Like, no, this kind of looks a little bit different. The lines are very soft. The animation's very fluid, but not a high frame rate. It's almost kind of like the new Spider-Verse movie is only not CG and not like CG. Even though I'm sure this is digitally colored. I don't know. Just look up Eden Schematica on YouTube or on Steam and just take a look. It's very pretty.
And as an aside, it kind of feels like a lot of CG styled movies have kind of gone for like that lower frame rate style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Spider-Verse definitely changed things up in that like
there's like a new TMNT
landscape.
movie that's similar to that too.
Yeah. So
well, like really cool those YouTube videos where they take whatever the original animation was and they just like modulate it to 60 frames per second, and it just ruins it because like anime, like I don't have the vocabulary to speak to it in terms of like, but these are deliberately animated to have like keyframes animated on 1s or on 2s or on 3s to evoke a certain thing. But like, nope, 60 frames per second, and that's how everything is supposed to be, right? It's like, no, please don't.
It's like kind of almost like getting like the popular demand of having 60 FPS like in most games, but like applied to that sort of landscape. It's like it drives me insane. Like 60 FPS anime openings on YouTube. Like I just wish they all just burned and just never existed. I can't deal with it. And and there's a few more after that. I met with Grinding Gear Games for Path of Exile 2. Path of Exile has been ongoing for like a decade now, so it's definitely found that crowd of and that level of success. A lot of hardcore players in that space love it. It obviously has like, it's a roller coaster. Sometimes it has some bad periods, some good periods, but like right now, Path of Exile, a lot of people have been really liking like the new league, from what I understand, and a lot of my friends who've been playing it for a long time really enjoy what Path of Exile is on right now. So I got to check out like a developer walkthrough from Jonathan Rogers, game director on Path of Exile 2, and it's he kind of walked me through like the changes that people can expect from Path of Exile 2. But even if it's your first Path of Exile, it plays so differently. The battle system is so different that it's like having, even if you had like outside knowledge and like experience with Path of Exile 1, like that'll matter to some extent, but for the most part, you're dealing with a brand new game system that you think about things. Like they showcased the game hands-on for the first time at ExileCon a few weeks back, and of course a lot of people who played Path of Exile 1 are going to be at ExileCon, and when they got hands-on with it, a lot of them were just dying left and right because they're trying to play it like Path of Exile 1. And Path of Exile 2, a lot of like the big changes with it, aside from like having a dodge roll now, which is like fully invincible, you can do it. It's not on a cooldown. Is mixing and matching your whole entire toolkit. Like Path of Exile 1's like design philosophy at the moment, and like it's been on this like for a few years now, is like optimizing pretty much like one skill to like its fullest. Like you have a build, and your entire build is focused on maybe one, maybe two skills to like just like deal with everything, right? And with Path of Exile 2, it's a lot of like using your whole entire kit to react to certain things. So, for example, they did a developer walkthrough of the Druid, and the Druid can transform into a bear and a human at will. There's not like a specific skill that you use to transform alone. Like if you use a bear skill, you automatically transfer to a bear. If you use a human skill, you automatically transfer to a human, and you stay in those forms for as long as you press another skill. And it's not like being in the bear is inherently tankier. It depends on how you build it through the skill tree. It's not like, oh, I'm a bear now, I'm automatically more tanky than the human. It's like, no, you have to build that tankiness through the skill tree. And the skill tree is still as complex as ever as it was in Path of Exile 1. So newer players will probably have to do their research and getting used to that sort of skill tree style. But as you're doing different skills, with between the human form and the bear form of this druid, it'll have different effects. For example, the human form can spawn this volcano that has fireballs coming out of it and does a lot of AoE damage for each fireball that hits enemies around it. But if you hit it multiple times, more and more fireballs will spew out of it than just like summoning it by itself and not interacting with it at all. So one of the things that Jonathan showed me was, what if you spawn this volcano, then use a bear skill that has like this maul ability, and then start using this maul ability, and it's firing on more and more fireballs from this because you're interacting with it. So if you're in the middle of a fight, that like all that damage is kind of adding up because you're pushing out more damage, and that maul skill is also doing damage. And there's a skill gem system where you can modify it so you can have skills work in tandem with one another. So there's like a modifier for this maul skill to have it hit 2 times after you hit enemies that are stunned. So you hit enemies, you stun them, you hit them again, and then once you hit a stunned enemy, your next small skill will hit 2 times. And if you hit that volcano with your next small skill 2 times, it'll spew out even more like volcano fireballs. So it's a lot of like thinking about different synergies with your moveset and move kit. And then they were also mentioning like there's a way to kind of like, if you don't want to like press 6 to 7 buttons, at once or manage that, there's a way to like automate it through the skill gem system. So like, for example, you have this lightning skill with your human form, and you also have a summon wolf skill that will summon a wolf, but as you summon a wolf, you also inflict a debuff to enemies surrounding it. Now you can have different skills, lightning and wolves, as their separate skill slots, and you can have like different modifiers with them if you want to. But if you want to automate it, so like, for example, you summon wolves at a time where you need the debuff the most, then you can actually like slot that skill gem for the summon wolves into the lightning skill slot. So when you summon lightning, it'll fill a gauge that the more enemies that the lightning hits, the faster this summon wolves gauge charges up. And so if you hit that lightning skill into a group of enemies, it'll automatically summon a wolf right there because that lightning hit so much. So it's a lot of Path of Exile 2's approach to combat, as opposed to Path of Exile 1, seems to be a lot experimentation with synergy in your character's toolkit. It's all like a lot of freedom. Don't worry about cooldowns. And so it's very fast, very visceral. There were several times in the demo where the developer died, not on purpose either. It was like died like 2 or 3 times during that demo because enemy packs can be so aggressive in it. So that was really, really cool to like kind of have eyes on that.
In generally, it's really cool to see like when they're genuinely playing the game and they're not like on some sort of god mode, or their HP will never go less than 1 because and sometimes that kind of sneaks through where because they're afraid to fail on stream or on a recording, but like nope, this is true to the experience players will have, so we're just gonna play it straight up. I died. That's how it goes sometimes.
Yep. So, and then I got to chat, with both the Path of Exile 1 director Chris Wilson and both Jonathan Rogers after that. Just a brief interview. I'll see if I can get around to it. Honestly, it was a lot, and it's probably be a wordy article too because of the way it was one of those things. Like people who speak about Path of Exile, like even from my friends, they speak very fast, and it's a lot of mechanics. And when it comes to, and when the developers speak about it, they speak even faster about it. So it's like I got it all on like recording, but it's just like translating that on a page is like, okay, how do I do this? So, but it was great. It was a great time seeing that. I do want to like give Path of Exile 2 a shot. I feel like Path of Exile 1 is gonna, if I do want to try out that game, it's gonna be a long process because it's a lot of research. And they do plan to keep Path of Exile 1 when Path of Exile 2 comes out. They're going to be supporting both games simultaneously. So like League, for example, like the seasons, like they'll start on a staggered pace. Like Path of Exile 2's season, like League will start, and then like maybe a month or two later, or I forgot if it's like a month or 3 months. I forgot. Later, Path of Exile one's league will start, and then like they'll have different mechanics in each league. So they do plan to support both titles simultaneously. Anything that you buy with real money, even now, all the monetization stuff, so all the cosmetic effects, all the additional stash tabs, but it'll work in both games simultaneously. You don't have to rebuy anything in Path of Exile 2. If it works in Path of Exile 1, it'll also work in Path of Exile 2, and vice versa. So you don't have to worry about like rebuying all the stuff that you did in Path of Exile 1, because it'll all just be unlocked and there from the get-go in Path of Exile 2. So which is really nice, it's a hell of a lot better than how most games handle it these days.
In general, it just seems like, first of all, being in a position as a studio to support 2 games at once is not a luxury that a lot of studios might have.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how, with that set aside, the fact that they say like, hey, if you don't have to, upend your communities or your builds or anything, because Path of Exile 1 we're going to still support. It's not going to go on maintenance mode. However, if you did play a lot of Path of Exile 1 and you're going to go into Path of Exile 2, you're not going to start from zero. We're going to, you're going to get these sort of benefits in terms of the unlocks that you had worked your way up towards over the last couple of
basically
years.
all the support that you gave us over the years, we want to make sure that we still respect and honor your purchases, so you can still all use that in Path of Exile 2, which is, it's really cool that it's like I could tell why this community loves grinding gear games. Like there was Chris Wilson up like just citing a lot of people's stuff, and doing like a meet and greet, like out to people who are passing by who are fans of Path of Exile 1. Like like Wilson is sort of like almost a celebrity in that community space, because he's he's the game director of Path of Exile 1 and does most of the presentations on that. He's kind of like the front man of Grinding Gear Games, and it manages all that. So it's like this developer is very in tune with their community. They understand each other, and it's been and it's been a long running relationship. So it's fantastic. It's always cool to see an independent like developer that has kind of like no master up ahead, up above, to see success and ongoing success in that manner. And people speak so passionately about Path of Exile whenever you get them started on it, and it's great. The last game I saw there that I'm the one that I'm writing up for next is Silent Hope, that Xseed is localizing. It's made by Marvelous. It's an action RPG. We saw it at a Nintendo Direct in June. That's when it was first revealed, and they showed more and more of the gameplay. Since the premise is you have 7 playable characters. They're all mute. A lot of the premise is about this former king stole away the world's words, so no one can speak verbally to each other. But these 7 characters are drawn into this princess who can speak telepathically to them. So they traverse down this abyss to go find the former king and kind of get back the ability to speak to the world. So it was a nice little cute game. I enjoyed. I spoke with the localization producer at Xseed Games about this game, and I'll speak more about it in my write up for it. But of course, one of my first things I inquired about is like sort of the challenges that the localization team had with just the premise itself, because a lot of the cast doesn't speak. So in terms of like how do you instill characterization in these characters when they aren't able to express themselves verbally, and only the princess can. So they had to, the producer told me that they had to write really well because the princess for the most part is monologuing, narrating, and and kind of giving flavor text to what's going on in the game. And all of these characters play uniquely. That they all have their different strengths and weaknesses, have their own abilities. there's a lot. Oddly enough, there's like a large emphasis on like making sure that each character has like a way to debuff and buff themselves for combat. But there's gonna be advanced classes for each character, different skills to swap out and experiment with in the game. Like I chose the Farber for the latter half of the demo, and they were saying that the farmer has an advanced class that is able to summon farm animals. I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome. That's and as the story of Season's Cows.
You mean Rune Factory connection right there.
Yeah. So it was a fun, cute game that had a lot of fun speaking with just the development of the game and the localization process, all that sort of stuff. And hopefully I'll get that out, sometime either later today or tomorrow. That'll be my next write up on that. But yeah, that's kind of sums up my PAX experience. I saw a few more things here and there, but it was kind of just whatever caught my eye almost. It was a fun time. I did a lot, checked out a lot of things, and got to meet a lot of great people. It was just a fun time all around.
Oh, it's really cool, and makes me kind of nostalgic for being able to do that. So hopefully next year that'll be on the cards, and just kind of going forward, just across our site, just having multiple people being able to collaborate on these on-site events, and then of course a lot of the publishers in 2023 have really kind of kicked up, kind of like the bespoke one-off events as well, being able to see the developers for either announced titles, unannounced titles, going off to see like Cullen had the boat experience with One Piece Odyssey,
Yeah,
and things like that.
Oh, before I forget, I almost forgot my meeting with Square Enix. I got to check out the Star Ocean 2 remake. That was cool. I wrote about that. It was a pretty brief demo. Yeah, but that's shaping up to be like a fun experience. And I got to check out the Little Goody Two Shoes. It's kind of like a horror narrative adventure. I did a write up for that as well. So I almost forgot those two. Great.
So is that game in like early access, or is it like kind of complete from the state that you're playing? Because there was no release date when they showed that trailer.
For Little Goody Two Shoes, it was a demo build. I don't know how far along it is in development. I didn't get to speak to any developers or people working about the game on it, but it seemed, I don't know how much of the game is in it. I imagine it's not the full game. I imagine some sort of early access build, and they're still kind of fine tuning it and all sorts of stuff. But I don't know exactly the state of development it is. But the things the portion I was able to play was pretty substantial, and it was really cool. It has a really, really nice 90s anime era art style. Really nails it. Really goes for it. And I might play the developer's previous game, Pocket Mirror, before playing that game, because now I'm interested, because they really have nailed a sort of like a nice, charming feel for the game that's sort of like kind of scary too, which is awesome. So yeah, I mean so it's I don't know the release date for Little Goody Two Shoes, but Star Ocean is November, I believe. It's gonna be. I can't wait. I can't wait for something.
It's November.
I'm really, like, just seeing it in person really makes me appreciate that they kept like the crisp 2D pixel art. Like, you can see the individual pixels on the characters, no smearing. It looks fantastic.
Developers finally learning their lesson.
I know.
No, yeah, and so as you kind of went through all the things that you saw over at PAX, you do have features up on RPGsite.net for the King 2, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Star Ocean: The Second Story, Persona 3 Reload, Rabbit and Steel, Little Goody Two Shoes, and Demonschool. So if anyone listening wants to see, your more full thoughts on any of those games, we do have write-ups on all of those up at RPGsite.net. So thanks for taking the time to kind of just walk through all the things that you saw at Seattle over the last week.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was a lot of work, but also just like it felt really refreshing. I'm just like, man, I really want to do more of this. That was the thing that came out. I was like, man, I hope to do more of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm an introvert, so sometimes when I do those events, it takes a little bit of a mental hurdle to get to it. But then once I do, I'm like, I really enjoy myself, and it is energizing in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've probably been one of these things, and yeah, it takes a while to get used to. I should have went. My friend that organized that event that I was doing, he goes through these events all the time. He's always like saving money to go to PAX all the time. Maybe I should go next year. Maybe we should set up.
Look, man, the more the merrier. I would love to see all you guys
do an
in
on-site
person.
Tetracast.
Yeah, dude, that'd be fucking fantastic, honestly. But yeah, I mean, Chao, I haven't seen you in person, but Brian, Adam, James, I've seen all you in person. Would love to see you guys again. Miss you guys.
So before we go on to the news slate, which is a little bit lighter this week, we do also have 3 other features up on the site. These are all reviews that have gone up over the last week. The first one I'll get out of the way is the Sea of Stars review. So we talked about Sea of Stars a little bit last week because I had just started it, but our reviewer, Paul, was not on the podcast, not able to make it. Paul was able to finish his review of Sea of Stars. He thought very highly of it. I'm not going to summarize the whole review, but one thing that he kind of touched on in his review that I do think is true for the game is that Sea of Stars is designed in a way for people like us, for us boomers that played these sorts of games in the 16-bit era. Or when you're playing it, even if you of course are new to the title, it's nostalgic in a way where it almost feels like you're going to a game that you played a long time ago, even though of course you obviously haven't. So that's a combination of the visual style, the design, the music aesthetics, and things like that. So he thought very highly of it. I haven't finished the game quite yet. I was able to put a few hours in over the last week. I'm bouncing between finishing Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield. I did download Ever Crisis, but I haven't booted it up yet. I've heard of some interesting things about the launch of that game. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I do have Starfield on my computer that I haven't booted it up yet. So I'm juggling a lot right now. Usually I try to play like 2 games at a time, but September hasn't allowed us that.
I'll mention about it because I've been playing a little bit of Ever Crisis and full release.
Before you say anything, what I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but like Cowgirl Tifa is like the banner big thing to get, but it's like the way it's designed is strange or something.
No Cowgirl Tifa banner. Maybe people data mined it, but the banner outfits right now are Cloud and Barret. Cloud has this samurai thing from the closed beta, and Barret also has like a samurai themed outfit. That's also But no, there's no Cowgirl Tifa right now unless people data mined it.
I must have.
I think people were saying there should be Cowgirl.
Oh, okay.
There's definitely like a story event in Final Fantasy VII that flashbacks to Tifa and her cowgirl outfit.
Spoilers from Datamine, guys. We'll get in trouble, man.
Hey, Final Fantasy VII came out like 80 years ago.
I do think it's sort of weird how in Final Fantasy VII and all subsequent media, just like the fact that Tifa in the past wears like a vest and a cowboy hat, it's like no one ever like brings it up or mentions it. She just does. And like,
well, I kind of like that. She just does. That's how she dresses.
And like, no one else in that town does. Just her. Like, okay.
But the thing I'll mention to you, Brian, is be prepared for a lot of as you progress to the game. It's like, oh, you did this story thing. Well, for the next 12 hours, we have a limited thing you can buy with real money, and it's only available for 12 hours. So if you don't want to miss out, if you don't want to get this 5-star guaranteed cloud weapon ticket, you can only get it for the next 12 hours. Just saying, after you beat this, story stage. Just saying. It's like, and it does this a lot. And it's like, and there's like fucking, and it's monetized out the fucking ass, dude. It is disgustingly monetized. I will warn you that right now. On top of all like, just like a lot of like packages that you can buy with real money that'll give you red crystals, and you can also use those red crystals to either, pull on the banner if you want, or you can use those red crystals for other monetized things that you can buy. And also, every 24 hours you can watch, 2 ads for a little bit more blue crystals. It's just like
I remember those from
your reincarnation.
Yeah. I did it for like 2 or 3 days. I'm like, this is too. I will boot it up and see how long I last.
All right, I want to know. I'm still. I could still. I just need one more 10 pull to get Cloud Samurai outfit, dude. I'm so close. Yeah, maybe I'll just buy. I should buy crystals right now to do it right away.
Spoken like a true gacha player.
Have you learned about the real Sephiroth yet?
It's a
no,
basement
or whatever,
okay,
or whatever,
okay,
or whatever
okay.
it is.
We're gonna get to it soon, okay? Because through the first mission, which was, it used to be free to play mobile battle royale that Square Enix released and subsequently shut down like a year later. Now there's the first mission content or the first soldier content in Ever Crisis with a brand new story around these 3 P0 class characters, and apparently once you complete the story that's available in Ever Crisis, you'll get a teaser for the next story chapter where you'll meet young Sephiroth. It can play as young Sephiroth in it.
Ooh.
So is he not like a
Ooh.
loser like his future self? Or he becomes insane from going to the basement from reading
I don't know. You're gonna have to play.
misinformation?
You're gonna have to play the first Soldier in Ever Crisis to find out. I don't know. I didn't get there yet, so
Damn.
it's a-
Guess we'll
Yep.
never find out about the real Sephiroth then.
I mean, you can. You just have to download Ever Crisis for the price of free, quote unquote free, on your mobile device, or emulator, whatever you prefer. So, yeah, great. God damn, dude, that game is so monetized. It is so shamelessly monetized out the ass. I was like,
It's like every Square Enix. Gotcha.
dude, it is so. All right, sorry. Moving on.
We do also have 2 other reviews. George Angst swung by again and was able to write a review for RPG site for, I believe this is a science adventure, a visual novel, Anonymous Code. James will jump in and correct me if I'm right or wrong. Maybe it's not. What is Anonymous Code?
All I know about this game is that it was in development forever, apparently. Or like
Yeah, it
released
is a
forever
science
ago.
adventure. Yeah, and it's probably going to be the last one because I don't think it sold that great in Japan. And I'm glad this got localized. I'm glad it got a dub. I don't see this selling well.
I did expect a price point. I saw it on Steam. I was like, oh, it's a full price game. And I'll get around to it and get around to it, but not right now because I have other games to like get to. But it is a title
This
that
was the
that-
worst time for it to release, and I
Yeah.
don't know if there was like a good time for it to happen, but definitely not.
this is probably it is second place in like the worst time to release. The first place takes the one that takes the cake is the Monochrome Mobius console release from East America.
God, yeah, that came out this week, didn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Like right same day as Starfield or like a day before Starfield. Yeah.
yeah.
So is that game basically like FF16 gone wrong? Basically, it did nothing but side quests near the end, where it ruined the entire pacing of the game.
What are you talking about?
The Monochrome Mobius. I keep hearing like terrible things about that game with the side content.
Look, you could read my review of the PC version I did last year.
Look, I don't read reviews, guys. I just want to read reviews.
He wants you
Make
to
sure
he wants you to spoon feed him. He doesn't want to read.
Chao doesn't read reviews. He watches just outrage videos on YouTube.
Damn.
Yeah,
What am I
yeah.
outraged about this time?
Oh, you're getting fucking smoked, Chao. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
I will not have bullying on this podcast.
Damn.
I do remember James saying that a lot of the pacing was weird in the game.
Yeah, and apparently the way they changed it was they made it so you can fast travel from any save point, not just specific ones, which is useful. And there was something else. Right. One of the problems is that kind of because of like no fast travel also, you have like a stamina meter for like running in the game. And they basically like doubled it or something and like increased the speed that running did, which definitely helps too.
Well,
And I think they might have changed some enemy HP values because I did know like specific like random mook enemies could like take forever. I don't think that fixed my main problem, which was with the menuing, because it was like it's one of those games where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to keep unlocking skills for your party members as you go through it. But once you unlock skills, there's pretty much no reason to use anything that you had before, because anything you unlock is like pretty much objectively better. And the way that you choose skills is it's just a list, and it's like since new skills are added to the bottom of the list, every time you start a fight and it's like, okay, I want to start off with this one attack, it's like you're entering the skill menu and then you're tapping the D-pad like 10 times or something just to get to the one you want, like the ability you actually want to fucking use.
That would drive me
And-
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Uh,
Maybe I'm glad I didn't die first, but I'll give it a try eventually. I mean,
It's not bad. It has some good moments, and I'm sure I'd be a lot more positive on it if I'd played it after they patched it up. But yeah.
But hey, that's not what they ship with, so it's not your fault.
Yep.
Yep. That's what they ship with. Yeah. Chao,
yes,
you wanted to talk about Granblue, the
I
mobile game
do.
or the browser game. So
I do. Maybe I want to. Can we get into spoilers territory because this event is over? You can't play it. So
okay, so spoilers for the limited time event that wrapped up in Granblue Fantasy, however many days or weeks ago.
So
it
are you
wrapped up
saying that
about
if I want to get into Granblue Fantasy, I will never be able to experience this?
Yes.
Yes, you'll have to wait a year probably before you get the
Gr- gr-
experience.
wow, I love
they
mobile
rerun
games and limited time events.
I know, but that's just the world we live in.
I mean, there are some games that just do it just permanently,
They do it permanently eventually when the event's old, but when it's
Okay,
new and fresh.
I'm talking about games that actually introduce new content and even collaborations and do it and just have it permanently after they add them. They don't have to wait like a year or something for make
Okay,
it permanent.
Honkai Star Rail did that now.
That's
Basically,
good.
events are permanent, but if you didn't do it when it first came out, you basically don't get the max rewards. You
Okay, that's
get, like,
stupid then.
I know, but it's like at least there is a failsafe. At
I,
least you don't.
I keep that the one I had in mind was another Eden, which does that. And they're still doing that, where collaborations are pretty much permanent and all the stuff is permanent. Whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
child, whatever. We're getting ahead of ourselves. What do you want to talk about with this?
Okay, so I'm talking about this event called Unbound Asterism. It's like the third series of the horoscope event. This is basically I wouldn't exactly call it the third part. I feel it's more like the second part because the first event is called 1,000 Reasons, and that event feel like it had nothing to do with it. But the wiki say it's related, and the game say it's related. But I feel there was no connection with the first event. The first event was about this kind of like this rich oil prince that started a fighting game tournament. Well, not like a fighting game, but like a fighting tournament. And it feels like a Street Fighter parody with all the UI looking like Street Fighter and stuff. But that event was, I felt it had no relation to this series. But they say it is. I don't know how, but I guess it is. And so we'll need like a little backstory. So I love this event a lot. So that's why I want to talk about it.
Okay.
Not the 1,000 reason. The second and the third part, which is the second part's called Marionette Stars, and the third part's called Unbound Asterism. And Asterism is like, oh my god, this story is so good. It kind of makes me like super hype about Relink in a way because I feel like if they got these writers for Relink, I am stoked. But I'm not sure. But they said they got their A team on this series. So basically,
Can I interrupt real quick? So Relink is being made by Cygames Osaka. Now, is that like totally independent from who makes the mobile game?
I
don't know Cygames' structure.
I think that was a new company they formed up for their console development. But
Well,
I'm
my
not
point
kind of
is,
sure. Like,
I'm wondering if there's any overlap in writers at all.
who knows? Because they have different
I
got lots of writers, right?
I don't know if there's any. I highly doubtful that there's an overlap in writers because I think they're two separate development teams, and like I think they have a dedicated team for like ongoing services for the Granblue Fantasy mobile browser game, and I think that's separate from Cygames Osaka on that end. That's what my educated guess is.
But they got like a lot of different writers, so I'm sure like if you played like a lot of events for the previous years, a lot of events been like hit or miss. And because a lot of events are not really good, they just keep making like sequels to like past events because do you like that event from back then? Well, we'll make a sequel to it because you seem to hate a lot of our recent events because they're not really well written, right? And that's kind of like the state of Granblue in. But this event, it kind of gives me hope that it's like, hey, this team knows what they're doing. They got some kind of flare back to it. So the second part of this event is about this, like, was it these chairmen that collect weapons from the stars? I don't know what their main objective with it is, but they try and like follow the destiny from the stars, and it's a very dark event because it introduces like the main villain of this event called Farinad. And in the first event is like this character does not understand empathy at all, but he's trying to understand it, and so the first thing he wants to do is he wants to have a family. He wants to understand what it means to have a family. So he immediately goes into this random household. He kills the dad, and then he tells the family, "I'm gonna pretend to be your dad, okay? And everything's gonna be okay, guys. I just want to be your dad." And that's kind of like how the event introduces himself, right?
Very
And
normal behavior.
And basically, they cooks the dad, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat your dad and be your daddy. Is that okay, guys?"
Wait,
and the girl was like, like the daughter of that family is like, it's like, damn, this guy's fucked up. What do I do?
She seemed very blasé that her dad was just killed and being eaten.
And then he's like, "Oh, it's like, why are you guys angry at me?" It's like, I don't understand. And he gets like very annoyed, and later on, he just kind of kills everyone there. And at the same time, when he kills that little girl, there's another girl that comes in this event called Tico. She's this doctor that has one of these weapons too. And basically, in order to save that little girl's life, she basically takes her soul into her staff. So that little girl that just died there became a part of her like weapon and part of her body. And this whole kind of arc is kind of like a revenge arc for this doctor trying to kill this guy with no emotions, and he seems like he's trying to collect these weapons, but at the same time he doesn't seem to understand like empathy, and that's kind of like the first part of it, the Marinette Stars from previous years. And basically in that event, it's kind of like a shonen battle series. It's basically she's trying to get to him, and you basically fight this guy that he raised, which this guy is kind of like his son, but he just kind of like betrays him in the end because he needed the weapons from him, and his weapon is part of his arms. So he just kind of cut off his arm, take the weapon from him, and that guy becomes traumatized and kind of knocked out, and that's kind of like how the first or like the second part of that series end. And now we're in the third part, which is the Unbound Asterism, and it introduces like a bunch of new characters that kind of like collects these weapons too, and they're just kind of like part of the main character's crew. And I don't know, it's like everybody just seems to join the main character's crew. They don't care the backgrounds or whatever. But the third part of this event is kind of like organized by them because they want to trap them and get all the weapons from them. I don't know what they need the weapons for yet because the story doesn't go there. But these weapons can read people's emotions too. So the beginning of the game starts with their airship being sabotaged, and they basically crash to this island, and they believe there's a traitor somewhere, but because they said that the weapons can read emotions and can kind of recollect past memories, they can't find who the traitor is, or they believe that, I don't know, it's like an inside job. They can't figure out who the traitor is. And there's one character that constantly loses his memories each day, and basically that's kind of like the red flag. I think that's like your biggest clue. I think the problem with this
that's just like a common RPG trope. That's kind of like
I know. I think the problem with this part is like it's like those murder mysteries, But the thing is like you can't guess who it is because you're missing this one crucial clue to it. If you get what I'm saying, it's like
yeah.
I don't know if you like watch like recent like I don't know like Futo Pi. It's like you can never solve the case because you're missing this one crucial case, and then the main character comes all galaxy brain and solve the case. Like, hey, look at this. It's like you did this and did this. You're the bad guy. But here you're missing this clue because you didn't know what one of the weapons can do, right? And I think that's the only flaw that I find in that part of the story. But this event is actually like very violent for a Granblue event. There's like limbs being chopped off all the time. Like we actually have our main character's limbs, like one of the main story characters in this getting their limbs chopped off like non-stop, and they kind of just reglue it back together with their healing abilities.
Oh, okay, so I have a question. So this main character getting their limbs chopped, is there any permanent like sort of like consequences into the main narrative then?
Well, if she can't find her arm back, then yeah, she would lose it. But no, they didn't. There was no consequences for her. But I think when she got her limbs chopped off, she basically, you know, that girl that I said that died at the beginning, that was being from that family incident.
Mhm.
Her soul left their body when she got her limbs chopped off, because that's how she kind of takes down the final bad guy near the end. Because when her arm got chopped off, the ghost from that arm basically went in and grabbed the other guy's body, and he couldn't basically do anything, and that's how they could like chop off his limbs, and he ran away
I know,
somehow.
but I'm guessing.
I have a question. Are we
yeah,
still talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
Granblue? I kind of got lost.
It is Granblue. It has a
Okay.
lot of limbs chopping
Yeah,
for some reason
I
for a
mean,
Granblue event.
I guess like it's always hard for me to like kind of take any of these limited time events and mobile games or browser games, whatever, seriously, because like they often have no stakes, right? Because they don't bring anything back to the main narrative that's interesting. Like anything that happens in it is self-contained because of its nature
Yeah, it
as a
is
limited time event.
self-contained, and I think if you play the story, the main character has the shittiest role in this storyline. Like, I think like when it comes to events in Granblue, the best events are the one where the main characters are least involved. Like the self-insert main character that you have, Gran or Jita, whatever you like. If they're less involved, the better the story it is. Usually, that's how it goes. Uh, what happened to the main character in this event is they get kidnapped from this rich guy, and they went missing for 90% of the chapter, and they come back when the rich guy let them out. That's basically it.
Okay.
So I know, it sounds kind of stupid, but
I
the
mean,
rich
look.
guy
I mean, if you said like that, like it probably is like meaningful at the moment, but like try to describe these events to like people who,
people is very hard to kind of
yeah,
describe it because
like it's
I'm
because they don't have the emotional investment, they don't have the sort of background understanding of like a
but
lot of this stuff, right?
yeah, this event has a very interesting villain. It's like a really dark. I think the best part of this event is this character that they had as a gotcha character that you get back then. No one really likes her that much, I think, back then. She was like a neat. I think that's the best way to
Mhm.
describe her. But she's like the best character in this event because she's like very blunt. Because like when people are like acting suspicious, she's like direct to their face, telling it's like, "Hey, you're doing this just for your own emotion attachment." And I think one of the things that people complain about this event is this one scene, because how the third part starts is like with these two little girls killing this guy, saying he's like, "We did the right thing, right?" Because they were trying to escape from this prison, and they basically brutally killed this one guy, and saying that they did the right thing trying to get out or something. And there's this one part in the event that everyone complained about in Reddit because these two girls, they're actually like one of the characters is playable, the other character is not, but she might become a good guy later on. But it, basically, this one part, they go to a village, they're hungry, and and they ask the villagers, "Can I have some bread?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure, you can have this bread." And that's basically how the event goes. But the writing makes it questionable. Did she did something for that bread because the other girl was breathing very hard, being turned on, saying, "Oh, you would go this hard for me to get this bread," and would start questioning this event because they keep thinking that the other girl whore herself out for the bread, and some people think that she killed all the men to get the bread for the girl. And I think the reason why the Reddit fury goes up with the whore part is because that girl's mom was a whore, because they were like using that kind of reference in there. I don't know if it's all up to speculation because this event kind of doesn't leave all those little details, but it's like there's this one part just like that. I think.
Look, man. Like I said, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see it for myself. I have the emotional investment, and on its face, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a really compelling event to like describe from like from the outset, right? It's just
I
like,
know it's hard to describe it, but I'm saying
yeah,
there's this one part in
yeah.
this event that makes Reddit question what really happened, and that's where all the outrage from it.
Mhm.
Because there's this one girl that's like, she sounded very turned on watching her killing all these guys or something. I don't know. She sounded like it's like you would do all this for the bread. It's like, oh man, I love you so much. It's like, but at the end of it, she kind of betrays her, and that girl's trying to find her, and it has like the conclusion to these two girls, which he'll kind of wait for a year because in the previous event, you would wonder if the other girl was lying to to everyone else about the relationship, because she keep talking about how close they were, and yet when you play the event, it's like this girl absolutely hates her, and she just doesn't seem to get the message, and you wonder if she was lying this entire time. And I guess you get kind of like the conclusion to that part, but I don't know. Like I don't know. Like if there's a best way to describe this event, it is very brutal. It is lots of like mysteries. Like there's kind of like I don't know. Like I think they're saving this event for the next anniversary event, because recently like all their anniversary event is like connected to like a different series. Like they did was it they did the anniversary event of the Society. The Society is like the do you remember Sada in the fighting game?
Yeah.
And Vasaraga?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are these group that hunt promo pieces, and their entire event is that they travel to outer space to the moon to fight these bad guys from the moon. And that was for their anniversary event, which is pretty epic. And I feel like they're just setting up this event for fighting these bad guys that'll collect these like star weapons, the horoscope weapons. And yeah, I feel this event is like done way better than all the other events.
News time. On to
Yeah,
news.
they're great. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So, like within like an hour of us recording our podcast last week, probably between when we finished the recording and before publishing it, this was right when like PAX was starting. This was the Saturday of PAX. I guess PAX technically started on Friday. It was Friday through Monday, I think, or was it Thursday through Sunday? One of those. It was 4 days. But one of the big announcements from PAX that you didn't cover in person, but we got the press release for last weekend, was the re-reveal of a game that was announced a few years back and went very dark, of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. This game has quite a history that I don't even know if I remember all the story beats of this. So it was originally like teases of like an augmented reality game and like a mobile app that appeared out of nowhere, and then it was revealed that Paradox Interactive and Heartsuit Labs was going to make a sequel to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which was created by what Troika, which disbanded soon after the game released. The original game released in kind of an unfinished state and had to have a fan patch to basically put it in a releasable, state. And then it went dark. The Heartsuit Labs was pulled off the project. There has been lots of rumors about who is on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 now. It was officially revealed after it was kind of surmised by a few, digital sleuths beforehand, that British developer The Chinese Room is now developing Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. They are the developers behind like Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, and Dear Esther. Games that I'm not familiar with directly, but games that are either favorably or unfavorably kind of described as like walking simulators sometimes. So there's been some feedback about they're working on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. There's ranging from I can see it, that's a good fit, to have they made an RPG before? Sort of like up and down the gamut. And then, of course, alongside this announcement, there is also an announcement trailer, which is more vibe and tone rather than a lot of gameplay or cinematic, though it does have some gameplay in it. It looks a little rough, I think, in terms of like the animation. But it does also look very similar to the game that we saw before the development pause a few years back. And it's supposedly slated to release in fall 2024. Though, if I had to bet money on it, I would feel like it's probably going to be pushed into 2025. It just seems a little bit far out still, more than a year. But yeah, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 still exists, still being made now under the Chinese Room.
Yeah, this is not the most surprising thing based on like behind the scenes like murmurs and people guessing as you said, but it is
People
going to
look
be
at
interesting to
LinkedIn
see.
listings and things like
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
I mean,
It's
yeah, I
going to be
mean,
really
we knew it was going to be a Paradox like partner studio. People looked in like, okay, who could it possibly be? Let's narrow it down.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I mean, yeah, like you said, it's going to be really interesting to see how the final game shapes up with like a developer that's never really taken on a project of this scope. Um, it's like a massive RPG sort of project and has a lot of like inner workings of like a lot of like RPG mechanics at work, and that's something that based on like the games that this studio has worked on has never really delved into that. So I really wonder how it's gonna all come together. I hope for the best. That'd be great. Like it's like if this game came out and became like a surprise phenomenon hit that just took the world by storm, that'd be fucking fantastic. But
One
you
thing that
know,
I do think gives it a little bit of promise is that one of the best things, it's not fully realized, but one of the things that I think is most interesting about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is, yes, it's truly an RPG, but you only get like experience upon
quests.
completion of quests, not from fighting or like
Yeah.
grinding or anything like that. And the nice thing about that is like there are some games where it's like if you take the stealthy option or the non-lethal option or the bypass the conflict option, then you're kind of shortchanging yourself because you don't get the EXP from killing all the mooks or whatever. And I know I'm kind of simplifying that, but one thing that Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines did that was really kind of clever, and this is back, in what, 2003? When did that game release? Um, Earlier than that, maybe. Let me see.
Yeah.
I want
I mean,
to get this right. 2004. Okay,
Yeah.
close enough. And so that was just really smart at the time, where I was like, oh, you're not you figure out based on the way you want to role play in your RPG how you want to complete this objective, and then if you complete the quest successfully, you'll get the EXP to level up. So, if a game based on a studio that is more experienced doing like narrative adventures, that seems like it could possibly work. Of course, the proof will be in the pudding once the game actually comes out, whether they're able to, thread that needle. One thing though, that's on the other side of the coin though, is back in what, 2021 or so, Brian Mitsoda, to a bit of pomp and circumstance, was one of the original writers on Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which is a game whose story is usually kind of lauded as having some interesting ideas, even though if it might not come all together at the end, just due to the way the game released. Uh, he and a lot of the other creative team, there's another name that I'm blanking on right now, was like,
Kai
they were
Clooney.
like, yeah, that's it. We're like unceremoniously like let go or fired. And um, now it's basically up in the air where any of the work that they did on the sequel is going to show up in the game at all, which I know is a bit of a bummer to fans of the original game. People who haven't played the original are only interested in the new game uh, because they weren't old enough or because they weren't around at the time. Might not have as much of an investment in that, but it's just kind of a bummer. It's like, oh, they brought the original writer back to work on the sequel to make sure that it had kind of the same look and feel, and now we have no idea if that's still the case anymore, or if any of that
Yeah.
work will make it into the
The
sequel.
cynical way to look at it is, oh, this is just some other publisher and some other developer taking the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines name and making a game that has absolutely nothing to do with the original, and nobody's, there's no connective tissue at all, nothing. It's just them just using the name for visibility or whatever. And the fact that Minnesota was there originally gave
Gave
the
it that
sequel,
credibility.
yeah, gave it legitimacy. And now that's not there. You've lost that tie where it's like, okay, does this game have anything to do with the original in any dimension?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and we can say that some of the people are being, I don't know, like pessimistic about this news, but I can't exactly blame them considering, like, I don't know.
No,
I hope it turns out well.
Yeah, clearly a very cut and dry case of development hell. And obviously, we hope they come out on the other side, and this game is, really good and quite special, and forms a good cult following or greater, just like the original did. But the skepticism I don't think is unearned. It's interesting because we don't see this sort of thing very often, and oftentimes once it does come out the other end, I'm thinking like Duke Nukem Forever and a few other titles. It's not
Yeah.
exactly a sterling,
But
story.
I think what makes this really intriguing, like also, is because it's not something that was thrust upon to the Chinese room. It's like Chinese room actually proposed like their vision of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. What the fuck does that look like? And we'll get the answer sooner than later. We'll get it. See what they had in mind for this game, what their vision was, and they're shooting their shot at it. So we'll see how it comes together. But I definitely, people have every right to be skeptical for sure.
I do under I like that'd be something I'd be really interesting in like picking their brains on. Like Imagine you're a developer at the Chinese room. You're working on, I don't know what their more recent titles are. Are they under a Paradox studio? Like, are they owned by Paradox, or do they just partner with them?
I think
Let me
they're
see.
actually. I think there's a Tencent connection in here somewhere. Let me see.
Uh,
It's kind of weird.
Video game company and publisher relationships are really hard to find. But anyways, just imagine. Oh, I guess they're a subsidiary of Sumo Digital.
Okay.
And Sumo Digital is
Paradox owned, right? Last I checked. God, finding the links to like who is a subsidiary of what, of who owns
Sumo
what.
Digital
is-
is a subsidiary of Sumo Group, which is a subsidiary of Tencent.
Oh my god. Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you.
So I
But
actually
anyways,
don't know how the
imagine you're.
Paradox connection is here.
Yeah, but imagine you're a developer at the Chinese room. You're a fan of video games, probably. You see the announcement of Vampire the Masquerade, and you either are or aren't interested in Bloodlines 2. And then you learn, like, oh, we could work on that because of that's the way that, the pieces fell. Like, and then imagining like being in that boardroom to like, let's draft our like proposal to get us on this game. That'd be really interesting to like. I hope we get the opportunity to ask about that. That'd be kind of just see how the kind of what we can glean from the other side of how that comes to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 re-revealed at PAX West, got a trailer for it, and supposedly slated for fall 2024.
Actually, I just went onto the Chinese Room website, and they say Bloodlines 2 does not have a release year, which is sort of funny.
Oh,
Well,
Paradox
Paradox.
says next year, and they're like, wait,
Well,
you don't know yet. Don't
it'll
get ahead
come
of
out when it
yourself.
comes out, maybe? Question mark. Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine if something happened to this game again, which
Yeah.
made it go just come out, or put it in a state of indefinite hiatus again?
Mm.
Oh boy.
There was one other RPG announcement in the last week. This one, I think, kind of came out of nowhere. It was originally an IGN exclusive premiere, as we've talked about in the past, how they publishers and smaller publishers will partner with IGN just for the visibility. It is a isometric, grim, dark medieval fantasy RPG. Apparently, it's like explicitly described that way, called Beast. As far as I know, this is an original IP. The publisher is False Prophet. It's self-published. We got a new cinematic trailer for this. I tried watching this, but like the backing vocal is very like 3 edgy 5 me, and so is the game itself. So it's like grim, like they explicitly described as grim dark medieval fantasy. It's kind of got this like pseudo screamo backing accompanying music track. Lots of blood and guts and like demons and things like that. And like, oh, okay, set in like the fantasy dark ages of some sort with lots of like monsters and things like that. Slated for 2024. We'll keep an eye on it.
box art that they have for Steam is just like a person with like blood on their face, like screaming in rain. It's like, okay.
That's let me go check that
Very,
out.
very,
I
very,
see.
very edgy.
So
Yeah.
well, congrats on like getting the Beast name for a video game, I guess. All in caps.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I don't know
thought
if
that
that's
was.
the best for
Sue.
SEO though.
I mean, I would have thought that a game was already named Beast before, like an old video game, but I guess not. Maybe I don't know.
I feel like Mr. Beast is gonna steal that. He's
all,
gonna be mad.
all I think about is remember when Bloodborne was leaked as Project Beast before, like the
Oh yeah,
the
that
leak.
does sound familiar.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Obviously, this game's nothing like it, but that's what I think of when I think of Beast in video games. I don't know. There's the I. Hopefully, the actual OST in this game is not as I don't know, um, there's not disturbing, but intrusive. And two, hopefully we get more direct feed of like that or uninterrupted direct feed footage of like how battles work in this game because it kind of seems okay from the snippets in the trailer. Might have
It gives me a little bit of a Weird West vibe, only medieval.
Yeah.
That game was interesting, but not great. So
It'd be great if this like they show dismemberment in this in this trailer, right, for the battles. Hopefully, if they had like some sort of like if dismemberment was like a big thing about the battle system, like if you like dismember a person's legs, they can no longer move or something. At all.
Yeah,
Cool.
Seems like it's a dismemberment podcast today.
I mean,
I feel dumb that I forget this, but what was the visual novel that we talked about like 3 or 4 months ago, where it starts out with a person getting like dismembered and then they put them back together?
Tsukihime.
Oh, that's Tsukihime.
Yeah.
All right, that's just how it goes. It's in vogue.
Yeah, dismemberment, big time for dismemberment, I guess.
Happens in Chaos Child too.
There you go.
Also kind of announced early within the PAX weekend, pretty shortly after our last podcast went up. We got a little bit, just a tease of what's coming down the pipe for the future of Final Fantasy 16. Remember that game? Feels like it came out forever ago.
Chao hates it, dude.
I only have room in my mind right now for RPGs, so I do not remember this game.
Ooh.
Bird. So, two pieces of news that came out of PAX for Final Fantasy 16. Well, actually 3. The first, I'll just say that the PC version was officially announced, not with any details, but just that they're working on it. So, not really a surprise. They also, Yoshida announced that they are working on 2 installments of paid DLC. We kind of figured that they're at least working on 1. I guess they're working on 2. We have no idea if this is going to be epilogue stuff in like mid game stuff. We don't know.
15 style.
Prequel. Yeah, like just 2 pieces, at least as far as I know. Like in terms of like the announcement from PAX, I don't know if there's anything else that's come out in an interview and another like publication or anything like that. As far as I'm aware, we don't really have any other details about what these 2 pieces of paid DLC are or timeline. Though Yoshida did say that we'll get more information before the end of the year, which we're in the back half of the year. So I mean, it's not too long. In the next month or so, we should get some more information about this DLC. And
that'd be really cool if it was like new playable characters at the DLC. That's something I'd be interested in. I don't hate 16. It's just
It's a very up and down game. It has some very high moments and some very low moments.
Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. But I'd be interested to see how these 2 paid DLCs shape up. I'm not to say like the most enthusiastic, but it's just like, okay, let's see what you can do with it.
And then also launched at the time it was announced a new free DLC, like a free update. I guess not DLC update, whatever. A free patch for Final Fantasy 16. A pretty minor one, all things considered. Kind of had 3 things. 1, it gave a new outfit for Clive, Jill, and Torgal. 2, it gives you the access to a new sword early on in the game called the Onion Sword. I googled this to see like what it was, but apparently you unlock it just from like like any game with like pre-order DLC or whatever. You like redeem it from the menu.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. You get to a certain point past the prologue, and then you just redeem it. Like, oh, so it's not like incorporated as a quest or anything. You just get the Onion Sword.
Yeah.
And then 3, this was more exciting to some people than others, but now the game, for at least for the weapon, has kind of like a glamour wardrobe system where any weapon that you've gathered, you can now skin your current weapon to look like. So once you get ultimate weapon, it doesn't have to look like that. You can look like any of the dominant weapons like that you get, because normally in the game you get the dominant weapons, but you like immediately craft them into like something else, so you don't get to really like appreciate them.
One small correction. Apparently he said that there's new outfits for Joshua and the Chocobo, whose name I forget as well. They just
Ambrosia.
They didn't show them though. I'm sure.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the
trailer.
gallery here, and I see the other ones, but yeah, I didn't see those. Okay, so there's a more cosmetic changes for those. And I'm the sort of person that when a game has outfits, like I almost always stick with the default outfit because usually it makes the most story sense. I don't care that Jill's outfit looks kind of neat, like her new one, but doesn't change her role in the story at all.
If Clive got a clown outfit, I'd actually change it.
I like these sorts of outfits more, that are like almost like an alternate character design rather than like here's the school outfit and here's the samurai outfit. So I think we've talked about this before. The three common outfits that you find: there's school, swimsuits, and like medieval or not medieval, like warring states.
Japan themed, yeah.
Those are always the 3 like flavors you get. I don't care for those. Like I'd rather have like a more bespoke design.
You want to know the game that I thought of when you like described those 3 common ones?
What?
Fuga.
Yeah, I think those are literally the 3 in that game.
Yep.
Wait, that game
Oh,
has
Yes.
costumes?
Yeah.
Both of those
Yes.
games have outfit
As
DLC.
cosmetic DLC.
Yep.
Oh,
That is, which is really kind of fucking weird for that type of game.
that's at
It's
least
so, it is so
out.
out of place. It's like, why? I get it, but also, why? Oh man.
They just have the cosmetic DLC because it's easier.
Yep.
Uh,
But
so
you know what? I wish they do this thing that they had from the Final Fantasy VI hacks. There's a Final Fantasy VI hack called the T hack. It's like a very massive hack that's like larger than the game itself. And one of the things you could do is you could swap the characters swipes to like Amino art or like the official sprite art. It's like something like that. You know, I wish they'd do something like that.
okay, but do they have schoolgirl portraits though?
No,
Okay, not worth
who cares about schoolgirls? It's the swimsuits where it's at.
it. So I mean, I it's kind of I guess cool that they're still supporting this game, and it's not the one and done. We'll see. Huge for transmogrify people though, for people who hated the fucking designs of later game weapons, which is kind of didn't like the later game weapon designs.
In general, I'm trying to be, like, charitable, like, I don't get a lot of value out of, like, that sort of thing, but at the same time, the fact that you don't really get to appreciate, like, the work that went into, like, the weapon models for, like, the
Yeah.
dominant weapons, like, oh, now you can, like, have, like, the, Garuda sword or whatever, like, and actually use it for a bit and get to appreciate it a little bit more, and, a lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
I feel like a problem is like you upgrade your weapons so fast in the game that you don't really appreciate the design of the old ones. It'll be like, oh, I got a new
Well,
weapon already.
you either upgrade it so fast or you get a weapon and then you don't get anything for, like, 5 hours of gameplay, and, like, I'm getting all this, like, materials, and I don't have anything to use it on.
I kind of feel bad for the design team that they drew so many weapons for the game with so many different skins, and they just get replaced with like 2 minutes of screen time because their stats were too shitty or something.
Look, that adds value to like the official art book. Okay, if the official art book actually has like concept designs of like every single sword design, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, you get your 1,000 magic ash and your 200 sharp rock or whatever, and you never get anything to spend them on, and you like it. Sorry, I'm being a bit snarky. Hopefully, maybe the DLC will address it. There we go. We'll be optimistic. We have a few other updates from some other upcoming games. We have one that is a blog post from Square Enix for the December uh, release of Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. So Square Enix is one of the few publishers that still does these like big detailed blog posts, which is kind of neat. Um, Talks about the different ways you recruit monsters in this game, how you can have like a roster of so obviously the main point of comparison here will be like again it's a kind of another Dragon Quest Monsters spin-off, which the most recent one was Dragon Quest Treasures. Uh and talks about how you can have a roster of 8 monsters, 4 in active, 4 in reserve, how you recruit them. It talks about some of the cameos or other characters you'll see from other games, like apparently Crystal Linda and another character from Dragon Quest 11 will
Well,
make an
Crystal Linda is
appearance.
not really a character. It's more of a
Yeah,
monster,
right.
just a witch monster.
Um, from will make an appearance in the game, and obviously just a whole bunch of screenshots of the different monsters. So
Platypunk.
yeah, I was gonna say like that one's cute. I want to give it a hug. It reminds me of the so I haven't played a lot of Dragon Quest games. I played 11 and Treasures is pretty much it. And it reminds me of the um what are they called? The little fuzzy birds in Skyward Sword.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Oh,
Like
about,
like
but I forget
the,
the
the,
call.
the little kiwi, the little kiwi
Are they
dudes.
called
But they're
Kiwis? I
fun.
don't know.
Okay, we dudes.
Skyward Sword, fuzzy birds.
I'll just name it the Fruit Loops box
Apparently,
bird
they're
thing.
called Kikwis.
Kikwi. There you go. See, my,
Yeah.
my memory is sort of working. Anyway, so some details that we kind of put up the key details from the blog post over on our site for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. A couple new trailers for a upcoming September release coming out in like less than a week. This is Lies of P. Both of these are gameplay focused trailers specifically targeted around weapons. The first one is called as it described, weapon showcase gameplay. Main thing here is that it talks about like the handle blade mechanic where you can kind of switch, like you can have like a sword blade with a glaive handle and things like that, and how those kind of interact together. So a little bit of a gameplay wrinkle there that's not in other Souls
Yeah,
like
rather
a
than
little
just
bit of
picking up different weapons, you have like you said, a handle and a blade, and that way now you have so many dozens or hundreds of combinations instead. So.
And then the second trailer, they call it the Legion Arm gameplay. Like
I had to
you
look
have a
into this.
mechanical.
Like, what does this mean? It's apparently your offhand. So your weapon's in your right hand, and this is your left hand.
Legion
I was
arms.
I was going to describe it. I had read through the press release and looked through the trailer. I was going to describe it. It's like, oh, it's like this game's magic. It's like your other,
Yeah.
your other combat, mechanic here. And then there's a lot of good, straight raw gameplay footage from these trailers, which I always appreciate. They still do hide the UI though, which is always kind of a.
I think it's really kind of cool and kind of funny. They do like before upgrade and after upgrade. They showcase that aspect of it.
Yeah, the text that they do is kind of interesting. Like the blade, which is in blue text, plus the handle, which is in orange text. It just, I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting. It doesn't seem like it fits the color palette of the actual footage.
Do you want edgy font text on it?
Yeah, and I want screamo alongside as well.
Okay.
So, yeah. Lies of P for me, definitely a game where if it was releasing in another month, I'd be into. But it's like, all right, I'll get to it later, just because September is too packed.
I feel exactly the same way. It's like I'm interested in this game, but why did it have to release now? Any other time.
And then this one is just a very minor update. Mary Skelter Finale is coming to Steam this month on September 13th. So Idea Factory just released a PC footage gameplay trailer ahead of the release next week for that. Into some final bit pieces of news for like sales updates and things to look forward to. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster series, which of course just semi-recently made its way to consoles finally, has topped 3 million copies total sold.
All right, it sold as much as FF16.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is it's a very imbalanced data. It's like what game sold the most in all 6? It's all 6 combined, but
yeah, it's all 6 across PC, mobile, PS4, and Switch.
Look,
So
Chao, it's a group effort, okay? It's one for all, not all for one, okay? Or
no, I want to say that 6 is the best.
So the console versions launched in April. In May they announced 2 million, and now here in September they announced 3 million. So maybe you could do some sleuthing to say like, a little over 1 million are from the console release out of 3 million. I don't know. It's a little bit of guesswork and a little bit of just trying to dig or read between the lines. But 3 million, I have no context to know if that's what they expected or is that good or is that bad? Don't know. On par with Final Fantasy 16.
time for FF7 Pixel Remaster.
I would do that. You can always play the NES DMAC from the Chinese.
You get Ever Crisis and you like it.
He's not disagreeing.
Does anyone here play R Knights or is that just Zach?
Just Zach. There's a large community for it. People love
to. Yeah, I mean, I think Josh too, or the other Josh T on the site. Yeah, the other Josh T on the site that's contributes news and other articles. Also plays Arknights, I believe, but
I don't care for it.
It's mostly some people.
Game.
It's mostly some people on our Discord.
The fact that the way they worded, I keep thinking it's R Knights, but okay, Arc Knights. I apologize. Arc Knights is getting a Monster Hunter crossover, or I guess it already did. This is published a few days ago. Monster Hunter crossover with Arc Knights started on September 7th. We're recording this on the 9th.
So yeah, cool.
This is the next one here is one that I had to read. Josh 2 wrote this one as well. It says Dan Matchy Battle Chronicle will launch on PS4 and PS5 in 2024. Apparently, this is the console release of Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, which originally released on PC and mobile.
Yeah, I barely know this series. I know like the long title in English is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, but then the shorthand version is Danmachi.
Oh,
yeah, because like the Danmachi is an abbreviation for an even longer title.
I feel that's one of the stupidest titles ever because the show has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
That's a typical Japanese light novel titling.
Yeah, that's stupid. But there's the Battle Chronicle is a mobile game that came out not too long ago. I want to say like maybe a month or so ago. I secretly briefly tried it out and I was like, this game sucks.
We got a funny press release on this. It's I'm gonna post like the title in the chat. Where
Okay.
it's just no. It's only it's. I don't know if this is funny. I think it's funny. It's like media alert. Don Crow, which is the I guess like the shorthand version of the title. Don Crow reaches number 13 in sales ranking. Like hell yeah, we're number 13.
Oh my god, that's sad, dude. That's a press release you put out. It's like at least Ever Crisis, even though I think the monetization sucks. At least the press release is like we reached like 2 million downloads, 3 million downloads, 4 million downloads. We're number one ranking in this region's store. It's like
I
okay,
can't
whatever.
judge what 13th place is without
Uh,
knowing what is 12th place and 14th place. Then I could judge it.
Yeah, there you go. That's I guess, but yeah, I mean, for people who are looking forward to this game, it's like great. I tried it out a little bit. I don't know. It's not my type of game. It's a it's an action RPG mobile gacha game that is kind of boring, and I'm not the biggest fan of the source material either. So that also contributes as well.
Looking forward, like I mentioned at the top of this podcast, obviously late in the month, starting on September 21st, is Tokyo Game Show. Kite did put up a feature on the site that is basically a list of the RPG related live streams in order starting on the 21st. It looks like Microsoft is one of the first ones to go. Potentially, one place, like Adam said, we might see Metaphor Refantasio from Atlas. 505 will be there, likely to see Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes, which got delayed into 2024. Sega Atlas going to be focusing on soon impending games that are already announced, like a Dragon Gaiden, Persona 3, and Persona 5, 3 Reload, and 5 Tactica. One
Let
thing
me
we
just
didn't mention
mention
earlier.
that Josh mentioned that he didn't check out Tactica at PAX just out of
Yep.
I
just a lot.
opportunity cost. He just had other things. And one person in our Discord even was like, "Hey, why didn't you guys check out Persona
Of course,
5
the one game
Tactica?"
that I didn't decide, yeah, the one
Yeah.
game I decided not to check out. So I was like, "Where's Tactica, guys?" I'm like, what the fuck? So I mean, look, James will check out Tactica at TGS.
Yep.
I believe in him, so
He's gonna
he
say
will-
no. I missed my chance, and then
I'll do the same thing. So I mean,
he's gonna get carried away by the Monster Hunter stream or something.
Level 5 will have a stream, and
Yeah.
we'll see games like Megaton Musashi, Deca Police, which was announced about a year ago at this point. It was when Level 5 announced like 4 games.
bunch
I don't
of
think that was a
titles.
year ago.
There's
I think
the
that was like
Professor.
I think that was earlier this year. This
That
was
was
supposed to
just
be the
like
year
April.
of level 5. Yeah.
I think it was like March, wasn't it?
March. Yeah, sorry,
Sometime
not
this
not
year.
quite a year ago, half year ago. I
Yeah.
can't keep track of time.
Look. All I'm saying is, Level 5 announced a shit ton of games earlier this year, and they say it's coming in 2023, and we're in September, and no Level 5 game is coming.
Well, both Fantasy Life and Deca Police are playable at TGS, so
So I have a few months left.
We got comments. They highly recommend Fantasy Life. We should check it out someday. before it comes out.
Remember, they said Granblue Relink was going to come out this year, and then
They said
Hey,
Granblue Relink was going to come out 2019.
well, look, if we're going by fiscal year, then technically,
You
Relink is still
don't
coming out
you don't announce Winter 2023 to the public, right? When you say Winter 2023 to the public, there's a certain time frame that you probably expect it to come out.
Yeah,
you
I
don't,
know.
You don't say 2023 fiscal year to the public when you say it. It's okay. It's fine being delayed. There's nothing wrong with being delayed. I'm just saying, for level 5, they said a lot of 2023.
Level 5 is
Right,
also sort
September.
of interesting in that their English localization team, I think they're called like Level 5 Abbey, if I remember correctly. They don't exist anymore, at least as far as I know. And so it's
Yeah.
sort of curious, like, who is localizing this? I think some of
Yeah.
the more recent games, it was almost like Nintendo took on the publisher role. I'm talking, by more recent, I mean like literally 3 or 4 years ago with Snack World and Yokai Watch 3. That was a 3DS game, so probably more like 5 years ago.
Well, Snack World was still localized by Abby. It was just published by Nintendo.
But yeah, like now that Abby doesn't exist anymore, it's like, and we know that.
Yeah.
We know that.
And to be clear,
we know that these games, at least Deca Police, is also coming out for PlayStation. So I'm just sort of curious, like, who is localizing these? Do they have like just freelancers that they just maybe? I don't know.
No clue. And I guess for some inside baseball, like we literally don't know who to contact to
There's
set up an
no
appointment
PR
for TGS.
contact, right?
Yeah, so it's just I don't know. I imagine it's a lot of people, except for like the very small few, are just running in circles.
Yeah, like
Or,
to be clear for people who are listening, when we want to talk to Square Enix or Sega or any English companies, Japanese companies, there's always like a PR team or a person or a contact that we can talk to, like for requests, for questions, clarifications, whatever. But level 5, it's like no idea who we would even send an email to. Like, absolutely no idea.
That's why
Yeah,
we're all putting our hopes and dreams on James to get this info. TGS directly.
Yeah. Basically, I could email like the Japanese email directly, but they're advertising that this stuff is playable like with an English website, so I'm assuming somebody there I can like talk with.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So we'll see.
Well, we'll wait for your report, James. We're all saluting you and giving you the best of luck on that end.
Koei Tecmo will be there with 2 games that we've talked about in this podcast a few times over the last couple months, Fate Samurai Remnant and Atelier Resloriana. Capcom, James talked about he was interested in seeing them. Big titles for them are, of course, Monster Hunter Now and Dragon's Dogma 2. Hoyoverse will be there. Obviously, like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail are both seemingly like evergreen titles from this point forward. Then, of course, the upcoming Zenless Zone Zero is one that we're interested in seeing more information about.
Chao isn't.
Square Enix, yeah, not Chao, but
Fucked up, Chao.
I don't like it. I don't know. I don't see any interest in it. And we got a comment section like, how can you dislike this?
Yeah,
Like,
last week's podcast, or maybe it was 2 podcasts ago.
I think it was 2 ago because I wasn't here.
Because Chao was like, "Oh yeah, you weren't here, right?" Yeah, and Chao said it doesn't look good, and someone's like, "How can you think that?"
it's like, okay, it reminds me of the combat in Genshin, but taken to extreme. But I don't really care for the combat for Genshin. I just like the exploring part of it. I just do Spiral Abyss to get my free gems.
Square Enix will obviously have a big showing there. They're going to focus on games like Star Ocean, The Second Story R, Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai, because obviously they're going to.
I heard Square Enix doesn't have Rebirth in their lineup. How dare they?
What the fuck?
The answer is they always add stuff later.
Yeah. Also, Power Wash Simulator.
Hell yeah!
All right, finally.
There you go.
Power Wash Simulator might unironically be their most successful game of the last couple of years.
You're probably not wrong, to be honest.
Foam Stars, Final Fantasy XIV will get a look in, and of course, like their upcoming releases like Adventure of Dai and Dragon Quest Monsters 3: The Dark Prince.
I keep forgetting that Dai is coming out, and pretty soon.
Is that another September release? I forget.
Yes.
Damn it. Okay. Bound and Namco will be there with Blue Protocol, of course. That recently is that
out in Japan?
Yeah, out in Japan, coming early next year in the West.
I played a bit of it at Summer Games Fest.
Last Recollection, Tales of Arise will have its 2nd anniversary, like during TGS. So put your bets on how they might celebrate that.
Like an anime, and then make a sequel anime covering a game that's not out yet, like the Mysteria anime.
And then Sandland, which is we talked about that when it was announced earlier around the Summer Game Fest time, based on the Akira Toriyama one-shot manga. We'll have an appearance at TGS as well.
Here's what I think about the Tales of Arise thing. They're gonna make a new Tales mobile game, but it's only for Arise characters. It's Arise focus centric,
and it's totally gonna work this time.
It's totally gonna work this time. But I don't know. Yeah, they also celebrated the Tales of Arise 2nd anniversary on social media with like new artwork and stuff like that. And then for the Japanese account, they're like, yeah, well, join us for the 2nd anniversary thing at TGS.
They also celebrated the 1,000 days of
Scarlet Nexus.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
yeah,
the Scarlet Nexus producer director Kenji Yanabuki, which we've said before,
he's our bro.
He's a bro. He basically said on Twitter in English, "I hope to make a sequel one day," which is sort of, on one hand, it's like, hey, he wants to make a sequel. But on the other hand, it sort of seems to imply that they're not already making one.
Yeah.
But hey, we've talked before when that game released. There are lingering plot threads. And they
Yeah.
even kind of teased the direction a sequel would go, which is spoilers to the moon. But yeah, we'll
It's
see.
always the moon. If you don't
It's
get
always
it,
the
no,
moon.
you're making a guess.
That's
Yeah,
like
the
the end of
1,000 days
Naruto,
thing.
apparently.
Yeah,
Just-
the 1,000 days. I guess Anabuki has been like posting Scarlet Nexus daily on social media,
'Cause he's
on
a pro.
Twitter, I guess. And like, yeah, he's very always enthusiastic about like talking about Scarlet Nexus and just generally like a person. To be honest, like like he has those unwavering like belief in Scarlet Nexus's success, or just like has seen a level of success for sure. But he's like he just has like unwavering belief in that project and like that IP, which is like kind of a little bit aspiring to see. It's like that's cool that like
Yeah.
I wish anyone believed in me as much as he believes in his game.
that's true.
So whenever
that is
so
very
when,
true.
when Scarlet Nexus was coming out and we were covering, the updates, the news, the trailers and whatnot, he would reply to every single update and he'd be literally like, "Thank you for covering this. I hope you all enjoy Scarlet Nexus." And here's like a screenshot that I'm a fan of. It's like that's why he's a bro. Like you just never see that from directors, and especially from a Japanese director speaking in his second language, or writing in his, not his native language. Like it's very admirable.
Look, Anabuki, I played Scarlet Nexus and I really liked it, and I hope for your further success from it. Okay, that's my official message. Look, whenever Scarlet Nexus is still brought up at my friend circle, like we still have like pretty fond memories and like just like joking about like our time with it. Like, 'cause there's some goofy stuff like Babe, for example. We just ping each other saying Babe anytime Scarlet Nexus is brought up. But we love
So
it.
I opened up his Twitter page and I'm just scrolling. He's retweeted maybe like 20 pieces of artwork from other fan artists for the 1,000-day countdown. Like there's a following here. It's kind of fun.
I'd love to see a sequel one day.
I mean, they pretty much queue one up, so it's like you would think it would eventually happen. Oh.
Well, I mean, I hope for Bandai Namco to greenlight a new dot hack thing, and I'm still here waiting too.
You get Sword Art Last Recollection and say,
yay!
And the last piece of news we have here, maybe not a surprise, but E3, which before it got canceled in 2023, was partnering with ReedPop, which is the same people behind PAX and other live exhibitions, are parting ways. So ESA and ReedPop are not going to be working on E3 for 2024, and in addition to that, the Los Angeles Convention Center will not be hosting E3 2024. So as far as I can tell, we are at
E3 is
E3
now partnering with a graveyard.
E3 2024 might happen, but if it does, it's not with ReedPop, and it's not going to be at the LA Convention Center.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Can we appreciate that Jeff Keighley had the tweet on lock? Just on lock.
Yeah, it seems like every time there's like E3 related news stuff coming out, Jeff Keighley is on social media like immediately like announces something about next year's event or something.
Yeah.
It's like,
what did he tweet this time? I missed it.
I guess I think Summer Games Fest is still happening next year or something like that. Like we've locked down. We're going to be back at Los Angeles for Summer Games Fest.
I see. On the 7th, which I think is the day this came out, he's like, next June, Summer Game Fest returns to Los Angeles. Like,
yeah,
I see. Man, they're like upselling them, man. God damn.
Look, Keighley is really funny about that stuff because he is definitely trying to be like the substitute or the replacement for E3.
Trying to be, he already is.
He already is.
Yeah, he already is. But yeah, but it's this would be the first time. Like if E3 is held next year at another place, it would be the first time they aren't at LACC. I think they were like at some Santa Monica warehouse 1 year, I believe, for E3. So it would be the first time they were not at LACC. Two, fucking I don't know. This is like the pop partnership with ESA like kind of bore to nothing. Like even when they were like planning it out, they had like remember the first year they were planning it out, like there was some E3 talk of like having like some sort of like activation and like having like these events like in bubbles or whatever. And it's like, what the fuck is going on with E3, man? And it's like that didn't really, and then that they eventually made that an online only event, I believe. At that, not this year, but like was it last year or 2 years ago? I forgot. But the way that they were talking about an in-person E3 then was like, this sounds fucked up and not really what we're used to. Obviously, probably mostly on ESA's end, like pushing that stuff. So, um, obviously E3 didn't happen this year, and ESA obviously is still very insistent that it does because it's like it brings them a lot of money. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who fucking knows at this point what the fuck if E3 is coming back? And I think for most people, they're like, yeah, it's okay, it's okay that this doesn't come back. I don't know. What a weird thing. It's
But then you
Same.
also get like a lot of like the PAXs are bigger than ever. You have like the Comic Cons, of course, keep having a greater and greater like video game influence, and you have like the smaller tier local cons like Denver Comic Con and like MomoCon in Atlanta that all have a greater and greater gaming. And like I do think like we're not lacking for in person events.
Yeah, it's just like once again like the main value of E3 at this point is just having everyone at one place,
Mhm.
for like a week. That's like the main value of E3. So you can like start doing like planning out your pitches to publishers, a lot of business deals happen behind closed doors. A lot of behind the scenes presentations like that. That's kind of the main value of E3 is just having a place for everyone to be like reliably for 1 week. And I don't know if Summer Games Fest is at that level yet of how E3 used to do it. Not saying it's that's not impossible. I just don't know if it's there yet. And I don't know even after all this time, like I don't know if even E3, as it would if it were to return, I don't know if it's even able to achieve that same level of status as like E3 used to have, like pre-pandemic, right? So
Right.
I don't know if it's like if there's even some like lost ground to like make up if it were to return. Um,
So did you go to the last E3 before they closed it up? I think James went there, right?
think
When everyone got
it was
doxxed.
just James,
Yes.
Brian, and I.
Yeah.
Do they actually have like good like hands-on over the event there? I
Well,
mean, I feel like
here's the thing that with E3 that people don't talk about is that it really kind of died even before it actually died because E3 as a show was never really meant to be open to the public.
yeah.
hmm,
Remember the roots of E3 was usually just only for industry people, media and industry people. It was never supposed to be like it did not start out as like a public facing event. Um, yeah.
I will say that E3 2019, you could kind of tell the death knell was there, but I did get to interview Sven for
Hmm.
Sven Vink for Baldur's Gate 3, and that was kind
Oh
of
yeah,
fun.
nice.
So,
Yeah, and I guess that's where I'm circling back to is like remember Gamescom that just happened, and remember Gamescom was a place similar to E3 is like that is an event where you could reliably meet like expect people to show up and they'll be there for a certain amount of days because of this Gamescom event. That is how Sven was able to talk with Phil Spencer directly on getting Baldur's Gate to Xbox and reaching a deal with Phil right there and then so now it's like, yeah, it's coming to Xbox because I was able to meet with Phil and we were able to like hash out its remaining issues right then and there, you know, because they were able to meet with each other directly through Gamescom.
Right.
That's a thing that happened, you know. So that's kind of the real value. Not to say that like that is a deal that is very rare in which they were able to come to like an agreement and like announce it right then and there. That is very, very rare. That is not the standard. It only happened because Larian Studios was already developing an Xbox version way in advance and
Also,
hoping to
also
officially release it there.
also not just that. Definitely the fact that the reason that Microsoft budged was because oh shit, this is possibly game of the year. We can't just
Yep.
hand this over to somebody as a console exclusive.
Yeah. So so that once again that is an extremely rare deal of that nature, but Gamescom helped facilitate that, you know. And that's kind of the effect of nature of these sorts of like big in-person industry events. So that is kind of the value of E3. Like I would like to see E3 return, if not just for that, I would like to see E3 return more on a smaller scale, like industry only event.
That's
I know a
basically
lot of
that's basically Summer Games Fest though. So
yeah, but I'm not saying that it has to be at Los Angeles. And but I do like I said earlier, I do wonder if E3 were to return like that, will it stop like the same levity as E3 before? Will that brand power name be able to
It's
like
kind of
attract people once again?
I
it's
already
kind of a
dead.
poisoned well.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know.
E3 2024 or 2025 are not canceled. There's just no plans.
Yeah,
There's a
that-
difference.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I don't know, but it's cool to see Summer Games Fest continue its level of success and continue to grow. I think very big beneficial thing in the absence of E3, but also in growing just its own thing. Like I hope it continues to gain traction.
And that covers us for this episode of the Tetracast. So very cool. First time in a month that we've had all 5 people on the cast. So cool to catch up with y'all. And the first of the busiest time of the year for us. So we'll meet back next week. We have a few releases that are coming up either next week or the week after. We've got some Pokemon DLC coming out soon. That snuck up on us. We've got, of course, the Fate and Kaito's remaster releasing in less than a week at the time of recording. Legend of Naota, Lies of P, Wandering Sword, which is a game that we kind of previewed on the site, is coming out in not too long. Big Cyberpunk refresh is coming out at the end of the month, which some people are more excited for than others, but that could be a potentially surprising one. There's a lot coming out. So there's a lot to talk about coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I'm
There's
excited
also
to
rumors of Nintendo Direct,
the Nintendo Direct. Yeah,
state of
and
play,
whenever
because those are usually before TGS. So
Yeah, so
Right.
so maybe a direct or state of play. Who knows? Oh yeah, there's also some talk earlier in the week that that Nintendo was showing off a Switch 2 behind closed doors at Gamescom, and some
Yeah.
websites have corroborated that. So obviously the Switch 2 speculation is off the charts once again because of that.
And whenever we have a Nintendo Direct, there's always like, all right, guys, here's 4 things we weren't expecting to talk about. But here we go. Well, maybe we'll
Do you-
finally see Dragon Quest 3 HD again.
Do you believe in
Yeah.
the rumors about the Final Fantasy VII remake being played on the Switch 2? That's once as good as the PS5.
Depending on your social media diet, there's rumors up and down and left and sideways and all over the place. So we'll see where it all shakes out.
Yep, I heard Switch 2 runs Super Mario 64 at 120 FPS. That's what I
Wow,
heard.
that's
could do that in the Vita.
that's unprecedented.
They're really showcasing that power.
But thank you all so much for listening. We have all of the features that we talked about, both from the reviews put up by our contributors, as well as all of Josh's PAX West previews and interviews, are all up on the site at rpgsite.net. We also all the news posts from Josh and Adam and Josh 2 and James and all the rest are also up there. You can follow RPG Site and all the social media platforms on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can listen to the Tetracast on your favorite podcast service. Please leave us a rating or a comment if you enjoyed listening to us. We always love seeing those. And we will be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us next time, stay safe and take care. And we will talk to you all later.